You're about to enter the Shockwave Skullsessions podcast. Heard exclusively on RoadrunnerRecords.com/Skullsessions. And now, here is your host, Bob Nalbandian.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Shockwave Skull Sessions podcast. This is Shockwave Skull Sessions episode number 44. And what you heard right there was a song called Crack the Whip from the band Snow. That is from their 1980 vinyl, extremely rare 10-inch EP. And man, you guys are in for a treat. And I mean a real treat. I am so excited about this episode because I have three unsung legends of the LA music scene from the late 70s, early 80s joining us on this episode. First, let me take you back to the Sunset Strip circa 1979-1980, when the LA music scene was truly at its peak. And I know probably many of you guys out there thought that the hair metal bands like Motley Crue and Rat were the originators of the LA hard rock metal scene that started that whole hair metal / glam metal trend. But let me tell you guys, there was a time back when Van Halen still was an unsigned local nightclub band. And I'm telling you, this is when the LA scene was truly thriving. This is a time when, believe it or not, the LA music scene was all about pure talent and musicality rather than image and how much money you have to buy pre-sale tickets. There was no pay-to-play bullshit during this time when bands had to buy and sell prepaid tickets for their shows. You didn't have all these tribute bands. Bands at this time actually performed original material, believe it or not. Sure, there were a couple major tribute artists, like, of course, Randy Hansen, who did an unbelievable Jimi Hendrix tribute back in those days. And there was another Zeppelin tribute band called The White, who also did an unbelievable tribute to Led Zeppelin. But apart from that, some of the bands off the top of my head I can recall, of course, Quiet Riot with Randy Rhoads. They were a big band on the LA scene at the time. And, of course, Van Halen. There was also Smile. There was Stormer. There was Exciter with George Lynch before he joined Dokken. There was London with Nikki Sixx. There was Pretty Poison, who turned into the Sharks, that later turned into Shark Island. There was, of course, Sweet 19 with Tommy Lee and Greg Leon. There was Axis with Vinny Appice, Legs Diamond, Wolfgang, who later turned to Autograph. And of course, you had a bunch of Orange County bands. August Red Moon, who took me under their wing at a very young age. There was Dante Fox, who later turned into Great White, with Don Costa on bass and Tony Richards on drums. There was Max Havoc. And there was later Rock's Regime, who turned into Stryper. And even later than that, we had Leather Wolf and, of course, a young band called Metallica. But three of the most prominent bands from that era, as far as I'm concerned, were Snow, that featured Carlos Cavazo, his brother Tony Cavazo, vocalist Doug Ellison, and our special guest tonight, drummer Stephen Quadros. There was also A La Carte, who ruled the Orange County scene in the late 70s and on through 81, 82. That featured three extraordinary musicians, Kevin Crease on guitar, Craig Miller on bass, and of course, Brian O'Brien on drums, who was another one of our guests on this episode. And there was the Greg Leon invasion that, of course, features guitarist extraordinaire, Mr. Greg Leon. These three guys join us on this incredible episode and tell some amazing stories. So listen to me. Even if you're not familiar with these bands, do yourself a favor and give this a listen. It's a long one. I warn you now. It's about 2 hours long, but believe me, you will be thoroughly entertained all the way through because these guys tell some fantastic hilarious stories that you have probably never heard before. But I know many of my younger audience are very interested in this. In fact, I got a lot of response on a previous Shockwaves Hard Radio podcast that featured Brian O'Brien. I believe it was Shockwaves Hard Radio podcast number 24. You could go to hardradio.com. Just click on the Shockwaves knob. That'll get you to all the podcast episodes. So be sure to check out that interview with Brian O'Brien. And also be sure to check out the latest Shockwaves Hard Radio podcast number 48. Features a great interview with David Reese, the man who originally replaced Udo and Accept and also just reformed the band Bangalore Choir. A great interview, as well as an interview with the legendary new wave of British heavy metal band Marseille. Again, one of those other unsung heroes who were truly one of the original new wave of British heavy metal bands. You can check out both the Shockwave Skullsessions podcast and the Shockwaves Hard Radio podcast on iTunes and several other sites. And be sure to check out the main Shockwave Skullsessions site. That is, of course, at roadrunnerrecords.com/Skullsessions. You can email me at shockwaveskullsessions@gmail.com. And with that said, man, let's get right into this fantastic conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy. Well, shit, let's get going on this, man. This is a long awaited podcast I've been wanting to do for quite some time. I got three of the most legendary LA musicians online with me. I got returning guest Mr. Brian O'Brien from A La Carte. What's going on there, Brian?
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it, man. Life is good, man.
Great. We've had Brian as an interview on our my sister podcast, the Shockwaves Hard Radio podcast, and it's great to have him back on this conversation with longtime friends and fellow musicians, including Mr. Stephen Quadros, the drummer from Snow. What's up there, Stephen?
Not too much, just enjoying the cloudy 65-degree weather.
Very nice. And our third guest, legendary guitarist, Mr. Greg Leon from the Greg Leon Invasion. What's going on there, Greg?
Oh, man, a lot of stuff going on. It's just busy. It's all good, though. It's all good.
Very cool. Well, God, man, lots and lots of history we're going to be getting into. I don't know where to start, but let's start by talking about some of the current projects you guys got going on. We'll start with Steven. I know many of you might have seen Steven on TV. He's a host for the MMA fights. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been doing commentating for mixed martial arts and fight-related show programming since 1998 when I did my first job over in Japan for an event called K1,
right,
which was primarily kickboxing. And I've also worked. I got in my prerequisite there, by the way. I work a lot with mixed martial arts, which is cage fighting, ultimate fighting. Right now, I'm working with Showtime Networks. I'm in my fourth year with Showtime, and it's pretty much doing Strikeforce Challengers and Strikeforce occasionally. And it's a great situation because I've been in martial arts for a long time. I was into martial arts before I even moved down to L.A. Started in 1973, actually. So it took a backseat to my drumming because I did another interview for a TV show today, and the guy said, well, what made you decide to get into music as opposed to martial arts? I said, well, I came to a crossroads. And I thought, well, if I became a professional fighter, I would maybe make a little bit of money and get on TV, but get hurt. Then if I became a musician, I would make a lot of money, and I would get more women. So I said,
There you go.
I grew my hair long and went for rock and roll.
Well, I remember you always had that look back in the Snow days. You looked like Conan the Warrior. You were always physically fit and were this top martial arts dude and, twirling those sticks around, and you were always quite the showman.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I can fit into those gazelle-like tank tops anymore as much, but I still work out. I still teach 3 kickboxing classes a week, and I still train, a lot. But it's funny because we're all right around the same ballpark age, and Ryan and Greg can attest to this. The old body just don't take the ass whoopings like it used to.
No.
Well, cool. Well, for those that don't know, Snow, one of my favorite all-time of LA bands that I was lucky to catch when I was very, very young. I was probably 15, 16 when I started seeing bands like Snow and A La Carte, and Snow was always my favorite. You guys were hot on the heels of Van Halen. A lot of people compared you to Van Halen, but I thought you had a much heavier sound. And, of course, a lot of people might know that was Carlos Cavazos' old band. You had Carlos and his brother Tony in the band, and Doug Ellefson on vocals. And I've got word that you guys were going to do a reunion show. Is that still in the works there, Stephen?
Yes, it is. But, life gets in the way. And Greg said he's got a lot of things going on at the head of the show. And I can feel you on that, Greg. Carlos right now is out on tour with Rat in support of their most recent album, which he recorded on. So a gig like that, I would be, unless I had an actual deal and thousands of dollars to throw his way, him going out and going on tour with Rat is actually going to help a Snow reunion, not hinder it. So it's just a little bit of a situation. I just spoke with Tony 2 days ago, and, we're going to definitely continue with that. I finally got back in touch with Doug Ellison. The three of us had never heard from him for like 20, 25 years or something.
Right.
And he sent me an email or a MySpace through his sister's account or something and gave me his phone number, so I called him up. And he had a really, really bad injury, and he can't strut around on stage anymore, and he hasn't been singing as much. So we kind of got the blessing to proceed without him. Otherwise, for sure, he would have been in the lineup of the Snow reunion.
Yeah, awesome singer. Well, great to hear that you guys are still planning on the reunion. And Brian, I recently saw a phenomenal show you guys did. A La Carte did a reunion show. I guess that was almost about a few months back, quite a few months back. And, dude, it was just like seeing you back when I was 16 years old at the old Golden Bear, man. You had the same classic lineup, the same three-piece, of course, with Kevin Creasy on guitar and Craig Miller on bass, and, of course, the world-famous Brian O'Brien on drums. So you guys going to be doing any other shows, or tell us what you got going on these days, Brian?
Thanks for the compliment. Yeah, with the same lineup, the same songs, the same audience. Most of the people that came there had seen us, 30 years ago, or, easily 30 years ago. So it was a captive audience. So we tried to execute reasonably well, but if we hit a clam here and there, most of the people in the audience could fill in the gaps because they'd had those songs as part of their youth when they were 14 and 15, kind of like you, Bob. You had a lot of friends in that audience that you didn't know, but they were most of the people we pulled from a long time ago.
Right on.
It was a fun show. We went into the studio and started writing a little bit of material, and we kind of reached an impasse of some lifestyle choices or something. We felt that we may reunite again, but Kevin's got a good little thing called Naked Blues, where he's a solo act. He just opened for Charlie Musselwhite. He's going to be opening for David Lindley. He's an amazing, authentic blues guitar player. Having played since he was 18 months old, and he's actually born in Louisiana. So he's got some good credibility there. I don't see a whole lot of A La Carte on the horizon, but Craig and I, my bass player, Craig Miller, formed a band in January with a guy named Kevin Craig from Bad Habit, back from the Golden Bear days.
I remember Bad Habit.
Yeah, with Larry Leon on vocals, an amazing singer. And Kevin, I listened to some of his Bad Habit stuff that Alan Wood gave me from 1980 at the Golden Bear, and I said, this guy's good, man. I'm going to look him up. So we sucked him over into the house. We started playing, but he's a songwriter and a singer. He brought in one of Orange County's best singer-songwriters, a guy named David Ben Tyson, over, and we started writing and developing some of their material. So we're, it's sort of God, I hate to, get too far away from heavy rock, but it's sort of like a Creedence Clearwater, John Cougar meets Asleep at the Wheel, and I don't know, it talks about Avenged Sevenfold. I mean, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's all about the songs, 3-minute songs. We call it Blue-Eyed American Rock, and that's where our first album should be out November 25th. We've got a few industry heavyweights that are behind us, and who knows, even at my age, there may be hope for a big record deal.
All right, well, definitely looking forward to that. And, A La Carte was always kind of that style. You were never a metal band, but your live shows, and this is because I was always, like this total metal guy. I was, into the Metallicas and all that, and into all the new wave of British heavy metal. But the first time I saw A La Carte, even though your songs were definitely more bluesy than more, say, metal, that your live show was so energetic, and it was like, like seeing AC/DC live or something. It was just always, an amazing band, and the crowd response that you guys had in those days. It was just always a fun party band, man.
Well, it's always been nice having you in our corner, Bob, and we appreciate everything you've done for the band.
All right. And thirdly, we got Greg Leon from the Greg Leon Invasion, and also from Quiet Riot. Greg, many people may not know, he was the guitar player that replaced Randy Rhoads in Quiet Riot. And you were also in Dokken before George Lynch. Is that correct, Greg?
It's all correct, except the only thing is the Quiet Riot thing. I did replace Randy, but we decided before we did any dates to call the band Dubrow.
Dubrow, that's right.
We were going to change it back to Quiet Riot once we got a record deal, but unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, that just didn't happen back then. And I, after a year of playing in that band, decided to move on. And I joined Dokken, and we went to Europe and just had a lot of fun. And after that, we still couldn't get a deal, so I left. And the demos that I did with Don over in Europe with Dieter Dirks producing got them their Carrera deal. And they moved on with that. I moved on with the Invasion and had a few record deals. In fact, I have a record deal sitting in the front seat of my car right now, but I'm not going to sign it because there's just no money out there with record deals anymore. They want everything, but they don't give you nothing up front. And right now, everybody steals everything offline anyways. The last two records I did, I mean, God, you can get the whole record for 99 cents online. Or in some places over in Europe, they give it away for free. And there's no way to stop it. We went over there and toured last year with the Invasion, and we sold a bunch of merchandise. And then at the last show, we had a bunch of CDs and stuff left over. So I was just throwing them out to the audience. We were doing this tour was all throughout Hungary, and we're playing 5 to 20,000 seaters a night on this Metal Fest tour. We were the only American band on the deal, and people were going nuts for us. And I threw out to the audience a bunch of CDs. And by the time I got home, I just happened to go online to see if, pictures that people had taken and posted. And I counted, and this is like, I don't know, 2 weeks after the last show, that there was, I think I counted 62 sites where you could download for free or for 99 cents for the whole CD, the last Unfinished Business record that I did. And I was like, my God. And so at that point, just on my website, I was selling, 50 to 75 a week, and it just instantly stopped after that, because of anybody that's got to have a brand, hell, if I can get it for free, let's get it for free.
Yeah, it's sad, especially with the new generation. I mean, a lot of the older fans will still go the old school way on buying CDs, but you talk to kids today, they don't even know what a CD is. It's sad. They expect everything to be the music for free. So yeah, you're right. A lot of bands have to make their money touring and selling merchandise, but that's something we'll get into a little later. Let's go back. Let's go way back in time, man. I want to give you guys credit right now, and I'm going to say it flat out. You three musicians and the bands you accompanied were really the blueprint of the LA music scene. Of course, along with, a lot of the other bands, Quiet Riots, the Smiles, and all the other bands that were playing the scene. But you guys really were the essence of the LA music scene, along with Van Halen. You guys were playing the clubs with Van Halen before Van Halen got signed. And, all these new bands that came over, that were supposedly LA bands, which really weren't LA bands. I mean, when Wasp came over, of course, Blackie was from New York. Poison, they're all from Pittsburgh or something. Warrant's from the Midwest. Black and Blue were from Portland. But they were always identified, all these bands, as the LA, hair metal sound or whatever. But you guys, like I said, were the blueprint. I mean, I remember seeing Guns N' Roses, another band that's, only like 2 members are from LA. They used to come to all the LA shows, seeing you guys, watching Shark Island. Axl used to steal Richard Black's moves. I used to see him every Friday night at Gazzari's watching Shark Island, and that was, the common ground. You guys basically wrote the book of what the new generation, which was, the, say, early to mid 80s bands started. And I think the reason being is, you didn't have MTV when you guys were playing the clubs. Record labels weren't signing bands left and right. In fact, they were avoiding bands. If they signed a Van Halen, the last thing they wanted was to sign another Van Halen.
Bob, I'll tell you something. When I got back from Europe with Dokken, we did nothing but showcases, and every single record label said that Van Halen was the last guitar band they were going to sign, and they actually gave us the Cars CDs, Devo records, and Cars records, and all these new wave, the Knack. They gave us those records. Said, guys, this is what's happening now. You got to cut the hair, get rid of the pants that you're wearing and the clothes, and get rid of the spandex. This is what's coming in. And we were saying, no, guys, we just got back from Europe. This stuff is coming in now. And they just missed the whole boat on that. And that's why I got frustrated, and I just started my own band, because I figured, hell, if they're not going to sign this band, which I thought was great when I was in Dokken. We had 4-part harmonies, and, Don and I were playing guitar, and, Sharon in the lead vocals. If we can't get signed with this, I go, hell, if I can't do this, I'm just going to do my own thing. I'd rather fail doing what I want to do than, partnering with somebody else and still failing. So, yeah, it's tough out there, man.
There was a big bandwagon and a big shift. What Greg is talking about is that I remember when Snow started coming into prominence, the punk rock new wave scene was dominating, and everybody turned up their nose at us. And we couldn't get anywhere, but we were playing more parties than the punk bands. And so through sheer attrition, the A La Carte, the Smiles, and, Greg, I first met Greg, it was Sweet 19 with Tommy Lee on drums. Yeah. And we used to have you guys open for us, but there was only a short list of bands that had the guts to go out there, grow their hair long, wear spandex, and get up there and play with Marshall Stax. And the punkers, I liked punk music, but I made one mistake one time.
That's because you like to beat up people.
What's that?
That's because you like to beat up people, Steve.
Yeah, but I don't actually like to beat up people. The thing is, I don't want to get beat up.
Exactly.
There's a difference. See, people that try and beat up people are people that usually don't know anything about what they're doing.
That's right.
But people that try and protect themselves, it's like a guy that owns a gun. He doesn't like to shoot people, but if people do home invasions on him, wrong, Exactly. But what I was saying is that one time I went down to a concert at the Starwood. It was X and the Go-Go's, circa 1980. And I thought, you know what, screw it. I had my long hair. I put on this Stephen Stills, those kind of reddish leather jacket with all the tassels on it, and I looked like a total hippie. I walked in there. As soon as I got out of the car, people started yelling and spitting at me. It was like, oh, shit. It was like, wow. I'm glad I lived through the experience. But I really enjoyed the two bands, But Greg was right. They oppressed. The record companies jumped on that bandwagon so hard. But when 1983 came open, the heavy metal scene got busted wide open by Quiet Riot and then all the other hair bands that followed because the parrots at the record companies decided, oh, well, let's go sign up all the other bands that have long hair.
Well, that's what I was telling Brian. When we did the interview, I said you guys were just a few years too early, man. If you guys, stuck it out through the 80s, I think it would have been a whole different story. I know, Brian, you went through a lot of the same problems with A La Carte. I mean, you guys were probably the top drawing Orange County band, and you moved into LA, and you were talking about Motley Crue's first show was opening up for you guys at the Starwood, I believe, and you kind of went through the same thing with the new wave thing, correct?
Yeah, well, we got to a point where we were willing to sell out. I mean, like, we were going to do anything to get attention. Stephen, did you ever try to sell out with Snow? Or did you guys try and add a little synth to it, or cut your hair a little bit, or put on a skinny tie like I did?
You don't remember skinny tie? Nice. We're going to put the Snow, put a the in front of it, right? No, just kidding. Do you remember when Doug cut his hair?
I don't think I'll ever get over that.
Doug cut his hair, but the thing was, it wasn't because of punk; it was because Freddie Mercury did it. And then we're going. Wait a minute. At first, we all looked like we're in the same band. We looked like it's unity. Because when you first get into the market, you have to show unity. If you look at any of the major bands, going back to the Stones, the Kinks, the Who, whoever, when they first came out, they looked like they were in the same band together before they started wearing the T-shirt, and then the other guy in the overalls, and the other guy in the suit, and the other guy with the long hair, and the other guy with the short hair. So you have to show unity. Otherwise, the audiences get confused unless you got some solo act going on or something.
Did Doug even ask you before he cut his hair, or did he just fucking do it?
He just fucking did it, dude. And
what a douche. Unbelievable. Greg, did you ever try and sell out? Or, I mean, you sound like you kept your integrity, and you still have. But
I've still got longer hair than I think I've ever had. And my drummer in my band got hair down to his waist, and my bass player's right between the two of us. And we just love that look, and I think it looks good on stage. And when you go to see a rock, I mean, I got 6 stacks behind me. The bass player's got 4 SVT stacks, and a bass drum that's 28 inches, 14, 16, 18. I mean, it's the real deal.
I saw that.
You cannot go on stage with butches and look like you just got out of football practice and it look right. You got to look like, hey, man, Zeppelin's in town, or Van Halen's in town, or Snow's in town, or A La Carte's in town. Yeah, that's the whole mindset that we all had. And you know what? That's what I loved about it. That's why I don't want to change that, because I'm not one of these new guys. I am what I am, and I've always been who I am. So if they don't like it, screw it. Don't come to the show.
Hey, Greg, is Geronimo still playing bass with you?
No, Geronimo. I just talked to him.
That was the last time I interviewed you, back in when I was doing my fanzine, Headbanger. We did a big special interview, and that was actually the first interview ever of Megadeth and Slayer, and Greg Leon appeared in that.
Yeah. No, I just talked to him on MySpace a little while ago, but we did a show at the country club, and the INS people were waiting for him because he wasn't taking care of his paperwork. He was from...
That's right. I heard about that. People that don't know, he's from Holland. He was in that great band Bodine from Holland.
And they were waiting for him backstage and literally took him when he walked backstage, and I never saw him again. I got a call and said, sell my stuff and send me the money. That was the last I heard from him, and I just heard from him about a year ago.
Wow, that's crazy, man. But, I want to get back to something you had said, Greg. With Dokken, of course, you guys were really big in Germany. In fact, you got the deal in Germany. Didn't that album come out with you playing guitar on it? The first Dokken album is a German import before?
It's got a picture of me on the cover, but it isn't me playing on it. What happened was, the story I heard, Don owed some guy some money, and the guy got a hold of some demo tapes and released them to try to get his money back. And that bootleg went to #1 overseas. And Don and I were laughing one day. The thing sold 150,000 copies, and it was like #1 on the imports. And, neither one of us, I'd never seen hardly any money from any record anyways. My first record that's been released about 9 times, Guitars, Cars, and in fact, it just got released last month again. I'll never see a penny from it because it always gets tied up in red tape, and it's just crazy. It's just nuts. I think I made more money teaching limbo to hunchbacks than I did with music.
And that was when Gary Holland was playing drums with you, right? From Great White, before Great White. Yeah, wow.
He was actually the original drummer in Sweet 19. And,
before Tommy Lee.
Yeah, before Tommy Lee, right.
Wow.
And we had a little falling out, and we were starting another band together, and Don wanted me to play with him, and I said, I'll do it, but you got to take my drummer. And we auditioned him, and he didn't really care for Gary at first. And I said, well, if you don't take Gary, you don't take me. And he said, well, I guess I'm taking Gary. And it all worked out because Gary was a great drummer, and still is a great drummer, by the way. And so anyways, that's how that happened. And we went over to Europe, and that was my dream come true, to go over to play in Europe. I wanted to live the Jimi Hendrix thing. You grow up here and you go over there and you make it. But I kept leaving bands before it happened. I just would get frustrated that it wasn't happening fast enough. And, I had all this attention and stuff, and I just was stupid in a lot of ways because I just didn't wait it out long enough. I'd wait 6-8 more months, and these bands, it'd be a different story now. But I would keep leaving after we do the demos. We couldn't get attention. And then after that, bam, it would happen.
Well, that's the thing about with a lot of the LA bands, because, as you guys had mentioned, when Van Halen came out, nobody wanted to sign another Van Halen or anything that was, like you said, guitar oriented. It was all new wave and, the skinny tie thing, that pop, synth pop, whatever you want to call it. But so many bands from LA were going to Europe. Like you said, with Dokken, you guys were huge, either Europe or Japan. You had Quiet Riot. When Randy Rhoads was in the band, they had a deal in Japan. The Runaways went to Japan.
Hey, but you know what, Bob? They never went to Japan with those. I'll let you guys know. I probably shouldn't even say this, but Kevin can't hurt me now. They never went to Japan. What they would do is all go on vacation. They would time their vacations and just leave for a month. And nobody would see them, and they'd tell everybody they just got back from Japan. They never actually left the continent here.
Oh, they never played out there. I thought they actually played out there.
No.
Wow.
Wait a minute, Greg.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
You myth-busting dude. I can't believe you busted that myth. I mean, everybody knows Quiet Riot cut that bitchin' live album in Japan, right? It's a live album, right?
I don't know about any live album. I just know about I know about Quiet Riot 1 and 2. During that period, they had never gone over there. With Randy in the band.
Steven, have you ever heard this before?
No, but I've been to Japan about 25 times, but never to play music, only to, commentate on fights. But they love their rock and roll. Oh, boy. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
Well, the other thing, speaking of snow, and this is,
I love Snow, man. I used to be at all of their shows. I just dug the shit out of you guys, man.
Snow was the best, man. I mean, that EP, I had that EP, and the funny thing is, that was the most demanded EP I had tons of pen pals in Europe. I was trading tapes and stuff. This is when bands like Metallica were just starting out with their demos, and Armored Saint and all these heavy bands from LA. I was trading stuff. Everybody wanted that Snow EP, and it was almost as rare as here in the States having the Iron Maiden Soundhouse tapes EP, literally, or the first Def Leppard single. Everybody wanted the Snow EP. I went to a Licorice Pizza one day. For some reason, I was going through the EPs, and the Snow is a 10-inch for people that don't know. A few bands recorded like these 10-inch EPs, and I saw like 10 copies of the Snow EP for $1 at a bargain bin. I bought them all, and I sent them all out to my pen pals in England. All these writers from Kerrang and all these other magazines were hounding me for the Snow EP. I mean, you guys, if you guys went to Europe and Japan like bands like Riot or Y&T did, or even Dokken did in Germany, I think it would have been a much different story, because Europe were just thriving for that heavy sound back then.
I think what it was is that we had run our course, because, as Brian and Greg know, you can only last so long on the fumes of rejection from the record companies, and then after a while you get just beaten down. And we had a real good 3-year run. I joined the band in 1978. I knew Brian actually before Snow, because I was in a band called Pod, and Brian remembers that band. And we used to rehearse in the same rehearsal studio with Brian and Kevin, and you guys were down the hall, and that was some crazy times. But we ran our course, and I really was hoping that we would go to Europe, because I had a hunch, with the Michael Shankers and all the people over there, that we would fit in perfectly over there. But our management never really reached out to Europe or Japan or anything, and eventually we went belly up. Carlos joined Quiet Riot. I got carpal tunnel syndrome, and the rest is kind of history.
Is that why you left the band? Because I remember they brought in another drummer, Snow, toward the end. The guy from Malice was playing.
I left the band because of management decisions. They were starting to make these decisions, and it was a thing where we were getting real battle weary. And it was a thing where it was time, because Doug got his hair cut, we were going to start going this different direction. We're writing songs that were kind of new wave-ish. And it was a thing where we had run our course, sort of, and the scene was just beating us down too much, and I ended up exiting the band, mainly because of the management decisions that were getting made. But, the funny thing is that I formed a band called Dangerface with Gary Robertson, and we brought Tony in on bass. Carlos made it to #1, and they wanted Dangerface to go on tour with Quiet Riot, but unfortunately I had tendonitis and couldn't even hold a freaking drumstick for like years. I thought my career was completely over. But
I remember talking to you about that, Stephen. I remember when it broke my heart, man. I mean, that's the thing you love the most, and then you can't do it because oh man, jeez.
Yeah, that was really difficult, and most guys would have become a junkie or off themselves or whatever, but I thought, well, what am I going to do? So, I had to get my haircut, get a job, and then I started saying, well, I look a certain way. I'm going to start acting. Screw it. And I couldn't play, so I started training back in martial arts, and it all kind of came together and doing acting jobs. And I got to fight Chuck Norris and Walker Texas Ranger, and
really?
A bunch of other acting jobs. It's what's so funny is that in the fight game they don't know about my drumming. In the music world, they don't know about my acting or my fight commentating, it's just so weird. The separate universes, because people get so myopic with their thoughts, they only think, okay, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Greg Leon, Stephen Quadros, Brian O'Brien, yeah. What's this other thing where, no, I don't want to hear about that. Let's just hear these things right here.
Does anybody still own a copy of Rock 'em Dead?
Shock 'em Dead, baby. Rock 'em Dead, dude.
Shock 'em Dead, thank you. Do you own a copy of that?
That was the original title, Rock 'em Dead. But for whatever reason, nobody got shocked to death in the movie. They changed it to Shock 'em Dead. Greg, you probably don't know. Bob, do you know about this?
I don't know.
Nothing about it.
Can I tell him, Stephen?
You tell him, Brian.
So I'm going out to see Jimmy Volpe in Pasadena one night, and I'm at this video store, and there I see this demon-eyed Stephen Quadros staring out from a VHS cover, and it's a Tracy Lords movie, and it was called Rock 'em Dead, dude. That's what it was on that cover. Maybe they changed it later. I could be wrong.
Wow.
And Steven is playing a demon serial killer dude. I mean, I forget the plot, but I think, didn't you get to wear geek glasses in it and like completely transform into like a monster, and with Tracy Lords, which is kind of bitchin'.
Well, yeah.
And we were so proud of you that you were in some cheeseball B movie, man. I mean, you'd really made it.
Okay. Okay, you opened up the can of worms. I love this can of worms because I embrace the B movie culture. Okay, here's what happened. I couldn't play drums, so my agent said, hey, there's this movie there, it's for a heavy metal lead guitar player. But you don't have to actually play, but you got to know how to. I said, dude, I got it down, man. I can do Townsend jumps. I can do this crazy shit. So I went down there, and I put on the song These Boots Are Made for Walking on this little cassette player, and did air guitar to that during the audition, and they were on the floor because that song's really fast, like speed metal. Got the movie, and they said to me, the director Mark Freed said, okay, you're going to play the lead. You're going to play Angel Martin. He starts off as a nerdy, geeky guy, then he becomes this big, bushy hair Nicky Sixx guy with all these groupies and whatnot. But we're not sure on the female lead. we're either going to go with Dorothy Landress, who was on Dallas, or Tracy Lords. And, of course, Tracy Lords was an adult star at that time, or she just ended her adult career. And I decided to go out and rent the only legit film that she'd done post-adult movie, which was called Not of This Earth, which was actually a remake. And I watched it. It was a bad movie, but she was phenomenal. And she was really sexy and really charismatic. So I call up the director and I go, hey, you got to get Tracy Lords, man. So he gets Tracy Lords. We do the movie. Michael Angelo Baccio did all the guitar stunts for me, but I did all the acting and all the jumping around and all the other madness.
Well, that's cool, man.
Very cool. And you know,
did you marry Tracy, or?
Well, dude, it was.
Or did you have sex with Tracy?
No.
Did you make her an honest woman?
Tracy, see, you guys are so bad, but Tracy was she's 21 years old, bro. And I was looking at her. Okay, I remember one time, because Tracy had just come out of. I had a friend of mine, one of my drum students, said, Steven, I got all her movies. I'll lend them to you. I said, no, I don't want to watch them because I'm supposed to fall in love with her in the movie. So no, I didn't want to watch any of the adult stuff. No 3/12-way in every orifice, none of that. I didn't want to watch any of that.
I love her, man.
So, yeah, dude. Well, she was 21. So here we are. It's the first day of shooting, and I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at her. I'm trying to not look at her because she was just a really smoking hot, whoa. I mean,
you think?
Yeah, exactly. You're so good, man, Brian. You're good. So what happens is, you know, the little smirk I've had on my face occasionally in my life. Well, I must have had that on my face. So Tracy comes up to me and slugs me in the stomach, like really hard.
Nice.
And I go, she likes me.
Yeah, that's love. That's love.
She likes it. And she goes, you think you're funny, don't you? I said, what did I do? Come on. And she was engaged. Okay, let's put it this way. The next movie I did after that, I was in the makeup chair with this really cute Puerto Rican girl, and she said, tell me a little bit about what you've been doing lately. And I said, well, I did this, I did that. I just got through doing Shock 'em Dead. And she goes, you're Steven?
The legend.
I said, what are you talking about? She goes, Tracy's my best friend.
Did she slug you in the stomach?
Oh. Dude, I got this great Tracy Lord story, or probably around that time, or maybe even before, when she had just got out doing the porn. She was trying to do the mainstream stuff. And I had run into her at this industry party, and she was wearing like this office attire, had glasses on, looked like a librarian, and somehow she struck up a conversation with me, and she had this great sense of humor, super witty, super professional, and I'm thinking this whole time, this chick probably works for a record company or she's a publicist. I mean, real professional, but super seductive. And I'm talking to her for a half hour. She's telling these jokes. I go, this chick is fucking awesome. She's beautiful. She's classy.
You want to marry her?
I want to marry this chick. And after a half hour, she abruptly, great talking to you, Bob. I got to go when she walks off. And I'm thinking, fuck, I got to get this chick's number before she leaves. And when I go over to see her, these two guys run up to me and goes, hey, what's up, man? Are you friends with Tracy Lords? Are you her boyfriend? And I'm going, no, I never even met the chick. Why the fuck would you ask me that? And they're going, well, dude, you were just talking to her for like a half hour. I'm like, holy shit. That was Tracy Lords.
I want your job, Bob. You get all the chicks.
Dude, after I found out it was Tracy Lords, I was scared shitless. I couldn't even go up to her. I'm going, I would have been nervous as hell if I knew that was Tracy Lords.
Bob, that's classic. Okay, when we were filming Shock 'em Dead, we had major heat. And it was a thing where she's engaged. I'm thinking, I'm not going there. But I was looking at her, I go, oh, she's so hot. Oh, my God, I can't even. I was thinking about her when I go home and stuff like that. So we had the scene where we had to kiss, where it finally happens. Okay, so the director said...
You're getting Brian excited here, Steve.
Yeah, Brian, you want to change underwear? Anyway, so the director says to us, do you guys need rehearsal? And Tracy and I looked at each other, and we looked back at him and said, no, I don't think we need rehearsal on this one. So they go, okay, action. And I grab her, kiss her, and I really lay one on her big time. And then I pulled back. I smeared her red lipstick all over her face. She looked like a freaking clown. Everybody started laughing. Cut.
Good work, Steve.
Greg, are you still there?
I'm still here. The only thing I've got is I dated Linda Blair for a year. I mean, that's all I got.
Oh, really? Wow. Did her head turn around and did she spit up pea soup?
Within 1 minute, people find that out. That's the question they ask.
How was that?
Good.
That must have been interesting.
It was great. It was in part of the time I was in Dawkins, and then when I started my own band. And actually, she almost got me into Derringer when Danny Johnson left Derringer. Rick and I had been talking, and we were getting ready to start rehearsals. Liz and Linda were best friends. Liz Derringer's Rick Derringer's ex-wife. And right before we were going to start rehearsals, he decided he wasn't going to do a band thing for a while. He was going to just get into producing. That's when he started working with Cyndi Lauper and all those other people. Another close call in my life. But that was a fun time.
Linda Blair was cool.
She was very cool. And at that time, she was the most famous actress in the world. And everywhere we went, man, it was just mobbed. I mean, it was great. It was so fun. I mean, I wouldn't trade any of those days for nothing back in the day. It was just fun 7 out of 7 nights a week.
Wow.
Okay.
That's awesome.
You don't think she ever forgot you, do you, Craig?
All right, let's get back to rock and roll here. Enough about actresses and porno and all that stuff.
right.
We could talk about that on our
Guys,
time
I
off.
got a story for Bob, Greg, and Ryan. I got a story for you guys. This is pre-snow. This is pre-pod. This is before I met Ryan. This is way back. When I first moved to L.A., I was in a band called Orange. It was Pat Mata on lead vocals, a phenomenal, ridiculously talented lead singer who I believe David Lee Roth borrowed many things because we opened for Van Halen a couple times. But the point I'm getting to, there used to be a club called the K-Rock Cabaret down in San Vicente. And Van Halen, the Motels, Quiet Riot, and we used to play there. One time we played at the K-Rock Cabaret, and we're starting to get a following. This is like mid-70s, almost late 70s. This little guy jumps up on the stage and starts pogo dancing and slamming around, and we're looking at him like, what? Like, you know, this guy's about, he's like mid-30s, late 30s, 40s or something, and he had these two, like, henchmen guys with him. Well, comes backstage, it's Phil Spector.
Phil Spector?
You got it. So Phil Spector says, you guys are it, you're the greatest thing, and it was a really sensational band. So he said, come to my house. And we're looking at each other, great, we get the address, and we think we made it, we have made it. We go up there, and guess what happened?
He tried to seduce you.
He tried to kill you and then tried to rape you.
No, you're confusing with somebody else, Greg. Phil Spector's the guy with the guns.
I know who he is.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I had a thing like that with Giorgio Moroder. Was after Sweet 19, got us over to his house. All he wanted to do was have sex with us. I said, dude,
Nice.
we are so far done. We're done. We're done here.
Yeah,
You give a little to the producer. You give.
yeah, right.
And many bands have.
We're up at Phil Spector's. We're up in his place. It's a fortress with this big gate and these dogs, and he starts screaming. And he's walking around with he had a 3-piece suit on, but he took off his sports jacket, he had a vest with a gun under his underarm, a gun in the small of his back, a gun in his boot with his pant leg pulled up. And he goes up to this guy that was hanging around with the band. I forget the guy's name. I think his name was Bob or something. He was one of those type guys that looked like a rock star, but didn't play an instrument. You know, we all know the type, right? So Phil Spector goes up to him and says, "Do you know me?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, you're Phil Spector." He goes, "No, motherfucker, you don't know me. You see me on the street. You don't walk up to me and you say you don't know me." And then he started going crazy and threatening us, and it was like we'd smoked some really good herb, and I kind of fell asleep. Believe it or not, during all that, my heart's pounding, but it was so good that I fell asleep. And the next thing I know, I'm getting shaken. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning. I thought we had died, and I woke up in hell or something and said, "We're leaving." He said, "Really? We lived? Oh, wow." So fast forward to snow. I'm, dating, a couple different girls, actresses, and I'm dating this tall girl. Her name is Lana.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you know where I'm going?
I know where you're going with this, Stephen. That's terrible.
It was so when Phil Spector got arrested for killing Lana Clarkson, I said, "What are the chances of this?"
Oh, wow.
About 20 minutes ago, one of my good friends, we're working on a pilot for a television show right now, but he used to be Phil Spector's assistant years ago, like 25 years ago, and he told me stories about him that what you're telling me doesn't surprise me at all. He said every day it was madness like that.
Yeah.
It's just
crazy.
crazy.
It was frightening. My only other brush with death that I can talk about was I did a movie called CIA Codename Alexa. It was a B movie directed by a guy who's not a big movie producer, actually. And the movie starred Lorenzo Lamas, his wife at the time, Kathleen Kinbott, and Orenthal James Simpson. And
OJ.
I had a fight scene with OJ Simpson. And so we do the fight scene about 4 or 5 times, and we've got it. It was a thing where I'm a terrorist, and I got this eye patch on, and I jump him from behind with this loose, not even a choke or anything. It's just a loose little thing around his neck, and he steps to the side and does the classic Bruce Lee thing, elbows me in the solar plexus, and then back fists me, right? The classic thing. So we do it about 4 or 5 times, and OJ has had enough. He wants to move on to the next scene, but the director said, no, one more take. OJ gets angry. So I'm at his blind side. He can't actually see me. So this next time, he elbows me, and he cracked me so hard in the face. He almost knocked me out, actually.
Oh, jeez.
And I staggered back, and he looked at me with this look like, oh, shit. And I kept going with the fight scene. That's the take they used. Fast forward about 1.5 years later, the DA calls me during the trial of the century, the murder of the century. Hey, we heard you did it, and we want you to be on the witness list. I said, no, I'm not going to be on the witness list. Forget it.
Wow.
Well, just because you were in one scene with him, they wanted you to be on the witness list, huh?
Well, one scene, no, because he got violent. That's
Oh, I got you.
Forgot that part.
Yeah.
He actually if it would have been 2 inches to the west, I would have had that new headshots.
Stephen.
God.
Stephen, it's Greg.
Yeah.
Do you think OJ did it? I'm kidding. I don't even expect an answer.
I wasn't there, but
You're the good guy, Stephen.
I wasn't there on the grassy knoll. Actually, it seems like he had a snap in him, and he snapped on me another time. But when we were talking about boxing, and I told him, well, we were talking about, and I brought up, the Gracie family from Brazil, and he got a little hot, and I thought, wow, this guy's got a temper. Wow. Okay.
So you
That's
knew.
Cool. What's that?
You knew he did it. You knew it when you heard about it, right?
Well, that could have been anybody's blood. No, I'm kidding.
He didn't even need to sit through the trial. He knew it right away.
The thing was is that the woman that called me, who was a former friend, she said, hey, remember when you told me you wanted to be on this trial? I said, I never told you I wanted to be on the trial. She goes, no, remember when I said, no, I didn't, no. She go, well, you're on the alternate witness list. I said, listen to me very carefully. You get me off that list. My thing is not to go out there and coattail affect anybody on anything. I'm not trying to be Cato Kalin or anything. I'm going to make it on my own deal. And my testimony is not going to help or hurt that trial. You get me off that list. And she did.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That's good.
All right.
Hey, Bob, I wanted to ask the guys, out of all the big clubs in L.A. that we played back in the day, is there any standout or favorite that you guys, that really comes to mind, or do you like them all? I
like the Starwood. This is Greg talking. I like the Starwood, man. That was my favorite. That was, to me, just the best.
I'm with Greg, man. Totally. Because the Starwood, you had the balcony, and of course, the whiskey had the balcony. Now, the whiskey had the heritage of Cream and, the Led Zeppelin and Cheap Trick and Van Halen, all these, the history. But there was something about the Starwood that was like a mythological, almost like a utopian place that it was almost like it never existed. It was too wild and too crazy. The things that went on behind. How about you?
The whiskey was a box. That's all you could say. I mean, it was it was a legendary box, but you shovel the people in. They walk to the front of the stage. They go to the back of the room, get a drink, walk to the front of the stage. The Starwood, you can get lost literally for days. I mean, if you get into that backstage area, it's like a maze. You can get lost. The upstairs, you can be a semi-VIP or a VIP and get up there and feel like you're king of the world with your own bar. The concert room, the disco room, the snack bar, I mean, the parking lot, everything about that place was magic. And Scotty Waller said it best, the singer for Smiley said Starwood was the king.
It was.
There were nice management, nice club owners back in those days. But
that's right.
The management at the Starwood, they took care of their artists,
And they promoted their artists, too, unlike nowadays.
Yeah. I don't want to get off that topic too quick, but I mean, David Forrest and Gary Fontenot, those guys, and JJ, the managers there, they seem to love their artists, and they really gave a shit about us, and they paid us well, and they gave us unlimited drink tabs, which if we started to suck, they might actually make you pay, but we never paid for a drink in that place.
No, me either.
Yeah, me either. And it contributed to our alcoholism. Nice.
Yeah, it broke my heart when they closed that place down, and I didn't want to go anywhere else. I start playing the Troubadour. I'm playing to people that are sitting there. No, people don't sit down when we play.
Exactly.
Screw that.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, man. It was over when they closed.
I'm so pissed. I was a bit too young. I missed the Starwood. I hit the Whiskey and Gazzari's and all the others, but never caught any bands at the Starwood, unfortunately.
I mean, how many times did Greg, Brian, and I share the stage. We'd always have Sweet 19. Greg, we love Sweet 19. You guys were such a bomb. And it was such a good group, too. And Smile and A La Carte, sometimes they'd headline, sometimes we'd headline. And it was great. That was such a cracking scene.
Yeah, it was. It was the best, man. And there was chicks everywhere. I mean, getting back to the funness of rock and roll. I mean, and everybody was into it. And that was like the destination for the weekend, where everybody in Southern California, they wanted to be at the Starwood in Hollywood. Yeah. And now everybody's on YouTube. Everybody's, got their DVDs and their videos and their computers. Nobody goes out. Then there's no scene for music anymore. Well, it's really sad.
Let's get into that. I want to get really deep into that, because that's something that today's music fans don't realize and don't understand. And I was lucky enough, like I said, I'd never been to the Starwood, but I was very young at that age, and I was able to catch a lot of these shows. I caught, I never caught you with Dubrow or Dawkins, but I did catch the Greg Leon invasion. We'll get into that in a bit. Of course, I saw Snow and A La Carte, in the old days, and it was a great scene because it was all about the live show, and it was so competitive. I know you brought up Jimmy Volpe earlier. He was a drummer for Smile. I remember it was a big battle with the drummers between Brian and Stephen Quadros and Jimmy Volpe, and you had Vinny Appice who was in Axis at the time.
My all-time favorite band, Axis.
Yeah, great band. That was Danny Johnson was in there too, right?
Danny Johnson, Jay Davis, and Vinny Appice.
And then they all went to a Derringer and did the live album.
Well, they went after. No, that was all before Axis.
Oh, that was.
Yeah, where the first place I ever saw Axis was at the Wood Sound. The Wood Sound.
Really?
Yeah. First time I ever saw it. Way out in the boonies.
The first gig, and I had a manager at this time, and I kept telling her, there's the sound I hear in my head, and I need the right guys with me. And she took me to see this, it was a tribute to somebody that was dying, Denny Lane or somebody, I can't remember. It was at the Roxy, and the band that opened up, Richie Blackmore was supposed to be there, and that's why I had to be there, but he canceled at the last minute, and they brought Axis in. So the curtain goes up, and Axis opens up with The Cats in the Alley. And I looked at my manager, and I said, that's the sound I've been hearing in my head for the last 5 years that's been driving me nuts. They're doing the heavy three-piece, and I just fell in love with them, and I became friends with Danny. We got a rehearsal room together, and I stole every damn lick he ever came up with.
Good man, Greg. Good man. Hey, Volpe was in that band for a minute, too.
Volpe played with me, too, for a while. We played together for a few months, went on a tour up to San Francisco, up the coast and back. And after that, that was when he was just getting off alcohol. And he was just going to like 3 meetings a day. And I love him. He's still a phenomenal drummer. But
did you guys ever go see him? Because he's got a great band that plays 3 nights a week for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I did go down and see him because Kevin told me, he said, Steven, let's go down and see Volpe. And I said, oh, God, I'd love to see Volpe. I haven't seen him in 25 years minimum. So we went down to Arcadia, right by where Snow used to live, 3 blocks away, right? And we went down there, and he was singing. And I thought, my God, my boy can sing. He was
God, can't he ever?
Dude, he can really sing like world-class, like heavy metal vocals. I mean, I go, whoa.
When we went on this tour, he didn't want to do a drum solo, but I told him to do a drum solo. I said, no, dude, you got to. You're one of the best there ever was. And every night when his drum solo would come around, and we played theaters, every single buddy that was sitting, if they were sitting, they would run up to the front of the stage to catch him with his drum solo. And I would just get completely off the stage and give him that 5 or 7 minutes, whatever he wanted to do. And I was like the biggest fan and just in awe of him every night. And I just felt so proud and lucky to be playing in a band with him. And I just wished it could have went on forever. But when we got back, we didn't keep playing it. Nothing happened. We just quit playing together.
Well, that's the point I want to bring up. You would have, Jimmy Volpe with Smile. You would have, Brian with A La Carte and Steven with Snow, Vinny from Axis. You could be all on the stage in one night. It was true talent. And same with the guitar players. You could have Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads from Quiet Riot, and George Lynch all together, or Steve Lynch from Wolfgang at the time, Dave Medichetti and Greg Leon. Anywhere you went, everyone was world-class musicians. It wasn't this pay-to-play bullshit where anyone without talent could get up on stage. And I'm talking, these are the club shows. And this is when Van Halen was still playing clubs. There were guitar players equal to the Eddie Van Halens. I mean, you could literally see Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, and Dave Medichetti in one night. It was just unbelievable.
How did that happen, guys? I'm trying to figure out, when did it switch?
I think it was when MTV came in and brought in the image, and then musicianship became secondary to the image. I mean, look at, we talk about Tommy Lee, who was in Sweet 19. He was, 17, 18? He stole his look from you, Brian. He stole his drum twirls from you, Steven. And he probably stole all the stuff from Jimmy Volpe. I mean, I
stole shit from Keith Moon. I stole shit from everybody. And one time Brian came down, and Brian, you got to indulge me in this. This is one of my favorite memories of you. You came down, and Brian is tall, right? So when Brian's in the audience, I see Brian. So I'm sitting there playing with Pod. We're on stage at the Starwood. And Brian, you had your long hair and everything. So I'm playing, and I looked right at him the whole time, looking right at him, knowing what he's doing. So he comes backstage, and me being the wise ass I was, the place is packed with chicks and guys, everybody smoking reefer and drinking and everything. Brian walks in, and I go loud, "Hey, Brian, what's up, man? You come down to steal my licks?" And then you said something like, "Oh, well, you didn't do anything like that," or something ridiculous, because we were like just chamming at each other. I said, "Okay, we'll see you at the next A La Carte gig."
Well, that was the funny thing, is you guys were good friends, but when it came to the stage, it was like you were fierce competitors. And I remember seeing Snow and A La Carte one night together. It was in Huntington Beach at the Old World. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm seeing Snow, in Huntington. And of course, I was a big A La Carte fan, but I remember talking to people outside, and it was all, the deal. Oh, who's going to kick whose ass? Who's the better drummer? It was just all about this. And I'm kind of like, yes, Snow is I love A La Carte, but Snow's so heavy. Snow was like the big band after Van Halen hit. I mean, as far as me and other people were concerned, Snow was it. And I'm thinking, A La Carte is fucking great, but I don't know how they could compete with Snow. And like Brian told me once, every time A La Carte played, they would play right before the headliner and steal their show. And that's what I felt kind of happened that night. Because A La Carte in Orange County, they got the fans there. They were a Huntington Beach band, so it's hard to compete with that. And it was like a great show. And then I'm seeing Snow.
If we would have let Snow go on before us, they would have blown off the bombs, man.
Well, let's go to that Van Halen story, which you told before, because I thought that was a fantastic story when you and Van Halen co-headlined in Long Beach, which was kind of neutral territory. It was in between L.A. and Orange County. A La Carte, the big Orange County band, Van Halen, the huge L.A. band at the time. And you guys did a show together, and you were supposed to go on right before Van Halen. What happened that night, Brian?
Yeah. I'll tell it quickly then, because you already heard it. But we had a mink-lined limousine. We brought in $100,000 worth of sound equipment that Van Halen wasn't going to play on. They were going to play on the Dogs PA, which was a couple of cabinets. And they were headlining the show at the Proud Bird and it was our first shot at Van Halen, so we were loaded for bear. We brought in a semi of sound equipment. There were 2 stages. They saw us roll the stuff in. They just gotten signed. They knew they were making it. They looked at us, and they said, these guys are going to try and blow us off the stage. So they went to Sven Holm, the promoter of the gig, who used to own the Smokestack or whatever that place was in Redondo. They said, we're not going to play, if we don't go on before A La Carte. So Sven comes up to us and says, hey, you guys, you're playing last. I said, well, no, we're not going to follow Van Halen. Look, we got someplace to be. We can't play last. We're committed to this. Our people are going to be. You can't do that. He said, then you can leave. You can just go, because I'm picking Van Halen over you. So Van Halen goes on at 10 o'clock. They stall. They go on stage. They do a 2-hour set. They burn the crowd out. There was 500 people. By the time they were done, there was about 50, 75 people, because they'd heard it all from Van Halen before. Van Halen walks off the stage. Alex grabs the mic, goes, Van Halen, Van Halen. So they do an encore that they got by themselves, I guess, and then they blew off the smoke bombs. So they smoked out the crowd. They burned out the crowd. They left us with nothing, So we decided we were going to take a shot at Van Halen, and we're the ones that got nailed. It was, classic competition. And it went on after that, too. They were relentless after that. Next day, though, we were all friends, at the Alice Cooper concert at Anaheim Stadium. It was fine, but that night it was war, and we lost.
I was very lucky to have played 2 gigs with Orange opening for Van Halen. One was at the Whiskey, and one was at the Starwood. And the story goes like this from the Starwood. Orange was an upcoming band, but Van Halen had a hardcore following. So we went on there, and before we went on, we've got about 20 minutes before we go on. We're sitting in the dressing room, and this guy walks into the dressing room, and my guitar player, we go, that guy kind of looks like, that guy, he looks a lot like, shit, that's Richie Blackmore. So my guitar player is just speechless. Richie Blackmore, hey boys, hey, have a good set, blah, 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 blah. So we do the set, we really kick ass. So I went and found Richie. He was up in the balcony, and I sat there. Oh, Richie, he was really nice. He was talking to me, and we're having drinks. And then you could hear the roadies for Van Halen setting up their equipment. And we're in the balcony, and then all of a sudden you can see the lights go down, and the crowd goes up, and you can hear the boys walk on stage. And Richie says, "Excuse me," and turns right around and watches Eddie the whole night.
Wow. How was the look on his face?
It was just sat there like it was intense. His eyes did not deviate from that stage.
You know, it's funny. The same thing happened when Yngwie first came over here and played with Alcatraz at the country club. Richie came, and as soon as they went on, he like goes to the front, and just watches Yngwie the whole night.
Of course, you should do that. When Buddy Rich played at the Starwood, he did a 2-night engagement, and I went down on a Saturday night. And David Knight was the manager of the Starwood. And so I watched him do 2 sets. I was up in the balcony. David Knight comes up to me, and he says, "Steven, do you want to meet Buddy Rich?" And I said, "Yeah." So he takes me back there. Mel Torme is back there. Charlie Callis, who was a stand-up comedian that opened for Buddy Rich because he didn't want to move equipment or have a band play with him or whatever. So it was one of those things where Buddy Rich had that reputation, those bus tapes and him yelling at his band members. And I was a little nervous. I had my little haircut and my little clothes and stuff. So David, when there's a break in the conversation, he goes over to Buddy and he said, "Buddy, I want you to meet Steven. He's one of the drummers around town," and blah, blah, whatever he said. And Buddy looks at me and he gives me the brother handshake and he goes, "How you doing, kid?" And he was so nice to me. It was one of those things where if he would have not been nice to me, it might have been a traumatic experience that would have haunted me forever, but he wasn't.
He could be good to people. Yeah, Volpe had a run-in with him, because obviously we were talking about Volpe. The second annual Guitar Center drum-off, my girlfriend and I grabbed Volpe and said, you're in it. We're going to enter you as our guy, because you're the greatest drummer around here. We love Volpe. So he actually had the nerve to do it. And Buddy Rich was a judge. And when Volpe got up there in Griffith Park on the drum set, Buddy was standing literally to the left of his hi-hat, staring at him. I mean, Steven, how would you like to be doing a drum solo in front of Buddy Rich? And Volpe, before it went on, we're rubbing his shoulders. We're saying, "Volpe, give him the face, give him the mad dog face, man. You know how he looks up in the air and kind of crosses his eyes and bites the cymbal and shit." Yeah. And he took second place. The guy that won first place had a cowbell and was doing some samba shit that everybody loved. But second place in that drum off for Buddy Rich.
I was at that drum off. I remember that drum off because the reason why I tried out for Kiss was because I was in the first one the year before, and I didn't come in second. I came in like 8th or something.
Was this before Eric? I'm sorry. Was this before Eric Carr joined Kiss?
Yeah, this is when Peter Criss was the drummer for
Okay,
Kiss.
Wow.
Eric Carr joined 4 or 5 years later.
Right.
Eric Carr was the
guy over 30 years ago.
This was But the thing is that Volpe was up there. I remember him, and I thought, like you, Brian, I thought Volpe's going to win this because Volpe was a mad dog. He was a technician, and Buddy Rich and Carmine actually did a drum battle at the end. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember Buddy playing at all because I might have blown out after. I sure don't.
They did a drum battle, and it was one of those things where when it comes to the art of the drum solo, Carmine, he looked clunky next to Buddy Rich. I mean, because Carmine is one of my heroes. Carmine is one of the reasons why I started playing drums, but Buddy was just Buddy.
Where are you from originally, Steven? I always thought you were a Pasadena guy.
No, actually, I've never lived in Pasadena. Snow lived in Arcadia. I moved to Los Angeles from Santa Cruz, where I was born, but I grew up in other parts of California, Salinas, Fremont, Visalia, but I moved down here in 1975 from, it's funny because the truck that I bought from my grandfather broke down the same day that I came to Los Angeles, and it was like I didn't have a car, so it got towed away.
You can't be serious.
I'm dead serious.
I thought you were born in China. Your parents were like these missionaries. I mean, you have this whole Zen thing working, Steven. That's not true?
No, that's because of the tattoos that I don't have.
Well, the reason I bring this up, Snow was always kind of considered, a Pasadena band like Van Halen. Same with Greg Leon. You're always, like from the Pasadena area. But there was a certain...
We were from Glendale.
La Crescenta, that, San Gabriel Valley. But you kind of had your own scene out there. You had, the Ice House, and you had Pookie's and whatever. You had, every place had a scene. Of course, Orange County had its scene. You had the Woodstock, Radio City, Handlebar Saloon, Jezebel's, and of course, Hollywood. You had the Hollywood clubs, of course, on the Strip, Whiskey, Roxy, Starwood, Gazzari's, and then, of course, you had Madame Wong's East and West. I mean, there were clubs all over, but there were scenes in every little city. Like in Orange County, A La Carte ruled.
I only saw A La Carte maybe 3 times, but 2 times that I remember. And the last time I saw them was at the Whiskey, and they had the crowd, and it was packed to capacity. And Brian, you guys had that crowd in the palm of your hands. I was upstairs looking down, and I was just thinking, my God, if these guys don't make it, then there's something wrong with the music industry. Because you guys were connecting with the people so good, and you guys just had that thing going on. So, and I was just blown away, because I'd only seen you guys a couple times.
Ow, thanks for reminding me, Greg. Jesus. Ow.
I used to be baffled at the same thing. I kept thinking, because Snow, we were kind of in the same pocket of the the hard rock bands, but you guys were like something. You're like a progressive ZZ Top or something. It was something different.
And very comedic. You were like a stand-up comedian. I mean, you were way funnier than David Lee Roth. People that don't know Brian, Brian used to get up and be a front man. He was a drummer, but he would get up on a Skin and Bones and different songs and tell jokes, and it was just hilarious. I mean, you guys really put on a show.
I'm grateful for the fond memories, but I think I have a bone to pick with Greg because Dubrow was supposed to open for Motley Crue at the Whiskey one night. Motley Crue was making moves, and Dubrow was also doing very well, and they were scheduled to open. And I think Greg was with the band at the time. Greg, were you the guitar player for Dubrow for the duration, or did you bail out before that ended?
I had a falling out with Kevin about 9 months into it. He pulled some stunts with me and got real indignant, and I don't play that way.
Kevin, you think?
Nice.
Not Kevin Dubrow.
I know that everybody loved him, and he was like but it just got real ugly, and I just said, you know what? And Don had been courting me for months, and actually years. We had played a show at the what was the name of that place in Van Nuys? The
Country Club, right? No, that's
Filthy
McNasty.
Rock Corporation.
Rock Corporation. Thank you.
That was before my time.
We opened up for Dokken, and this is right out of high school, and I had a band. It was just my name, and Gary Halen at Halen had to come down to check me out that night because I was looking for a new drummer. I had my high school band, and we were all, I think, underage. But anyways, Don saw me playing, came up to me afterwards and really dug what I was doing. He liked my voice and said, man, if you and me got together, I don't think there's anything we couldn't do. And I said, yeah, I just want to do my own thing, though. So he kept every 6 months, every 3 months, we'd run into each other. He'd call me up and say, you changed your mind yet? And this one time he'd been checking me out with Dubrow, and still saying, and then he came up with this thing. He goes, I got a tour to Europe, and I was really unhappy in Dubrow. We couldn't get a deal. Kevin was impossible, and impossible. To the point where I would be crying. I would be so mad because he was just really mean-spirited, and I'm just not that. I like to have fun. Whenever I'm around people, I want to have fun. I don't want to get all shitty to people and cause people to get in arguments and fights. That's not what I'm about, or anybody should be about. And so
Greg, there's one thing I do remember that you were very a kind-hearted guy, and the thing was with Kevin. Let's face it, he was Darth Vader. He was.
Yeah.
And, there was a time when and God bless him, R.I.P. and all that, But he was actually nicer to me after he made it than when he was on the local scene. But here was something that happened when Snow first started to get a little bit of a following, and we were going to open up for Quiet Riot. Kevin and not Drew Forsythe. Kevin said, no, we're not moving our drum set off the riser. You have to set up in front of the riser. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay. I set up. Drew and I were cool. Rudy, actually, I don't think Rudy was in the band. I think Kelly was still in the band back then. And so that happened about a year later. Guess what? Snow was the #1 band. Quiet Riot broke up. Dubrow started. So Drew was still with Dubrow before Frankie joined Dubrow. And then Carlos and Tony and Doug said, we're going to get him now. I said, no, guys, no, we're not going to get him. I'm going to make sure I move my drums so that Drew can set up on our riser. They said, what? I said, look, just trust me on this. Just do it this way. And we did, and I think it's the higher road, and that was what you were about, Greg. You were about that kind of high-mindedness.
Definitely. I just couldn't be that shitty guy to people, you know?
Yeah, I know.
So Don made it real easy. Promised me a European tour, and sure enough, I quit Dubrow, and 28 days later, we're on a plane going over to Germany to do a bunch of shows over in Europe. So it was real easy to quit at that point.
Great stuff,
anyways.
Wow.
Great to hear that.
And Brian, you were saying Motley Crue ended up doing the show that Dubrow was supposed to do. Wasn't that their first show?
Dubrow backed out at the last minute. I don't think they wanted to open for Motley Crue for whatever reason. I think Kevin was still pretty high and mighty at that time.
You know what's the funny thing? I did an interview for a magazine, and the guy asked me what was it like working with Kevin Dubrow, and I told the truth. Well, the magazine article comes out. I mean, it was an internet magazine thing, and the article comes out. I get this call. I haven't spoken or seen or anything from Kevin Dubrow for probably 25 years. I get a phone call. I don't know how the hell he got my number. First thing in the morning. He goes, "Hey, how you doing? It's an old friend." I go, "Who's this?" He goes, "I just want this is a friendly phone call." I go, "Who is this?" He goes, "Kevin Dubrow." And I just about shit myself. I just got cold. A cold flush came over me, and I know why he's calling. And he goes, "I read the article." I'm going, "Well, you should be nice to people because that's you burn bridges." And he goes, "Greg, I'm not that guy anymore." And he goes, "Man, I want to apologize." He goes, "I thought we had a good relationship." And so I go, "What, you don't remember the time you did this?" And he goes, "No, I don't remember that." I go, "Well, how about the time you said this and you did this and pulled this?" And no, I don't remember that. So I went on to about 5 or 6 different things. And he goes, "Dude, I am so sorry." He goes, "I'm not that guy anymore." And he begged for me to forgive him. And then at the end of it, he goes, "Would you do me a favor?" And I go, yeah, you apologized to me. It's all good now. And he goes, "Would you retract that statement?" I go, "Well, it's been printed." I go, "I'll call the guy, and ask him if he'll pull it out there, and I'll rewrite the statement." So the guy took the statement out, and Kevin calls me the next day. He was the nicest guy in the world. We ended up playing Rocklahoma together, and they came on, I think, 2 bands after us. They're playing to about 50,000 people. I think I played to about 25,000 that day. And I was on the side of the stage, and when he was done with the show, and they kicked ass, it was the last show they ever did. The guy that Kevin comes up to is me. He almost picks me up, hugging me, and takes me backstage with him. And we hung out for like another hour, just catching up, and it was all good. I mean, it was just like it was when I first joined Dubrow, where I was his little, thing that he wanted to show off to the world or something. Back at the time after Randy left, and a couple months later, I get a phone call from Laurie Holland that Kevin Dubrow OD'd on cocaine. It was just, and I'm so glad that we had made up because I didn't want to carry all that nonsense around with me,
Yeah, it's funny because Kevin, like I said earlier in this conversation, he was a lot nicer to me. He never really came to me and dissed me or whatever. He'd do it to other people. But he after he made it, he was a lot cooler. And I think part of it was the fact that he was so driven. He was really driven. And I attribute the success of Quiet Riot pretty much directly to him.
Well, it was that competitiveness that I said. I mean, all you guys, you could be friends backstage, whatever. When it came to playing, it was a vicious thing because all you guys had was the live show. You didn't have MTV. You didn't have albums out. You guys had to kick ass. And people got to remember, this is the time that major bands, I remember bands like Judas Priest were playing the Starwood in like 79 when Hellbent came out. And Rush was playing the Starwood. So these were the bands you were competing with, bands that had records out. You guys were the kings of the local LA scene. All you had was your stage show.
All I have in this world is my balls and my word. I don't break them for no one. You understand?
Can I quote you on that?
No, you can quote Al Pacino.
The thing about Quiet Riot, it really bugged me when they came out with Metal Health. And they became like this metal band. We're the first metal band to hit #1. Quiet Riot were never a metal band. They were always like a pop band. And then they got signed to this whole metal movement, came out of Europe. And it really, I hear the song Metal Health on the radio, and I'm going, wait a second. This is a Snow song. This is No More Booze. And I go, they ruined the song. This was a classic party song from Snow. And then their other hit was a Slade song. I'm going, Quiet Riot, we're a pop band. Slick Black Cadillac. I mean, they were a great band with Randy in it, but they defied the term metal. metal. And then they automatically became, the staple LA heavy metal band, them and Motley Crue.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Whatever it took to break them out. And again, I think we can attribute a lot of that to Carlos. He brought a lot of metal edge to Kevin, and hey, that was a route that they were, ready to sign up and push. It was good job, Carlos.
It's funny you mentioned that he brought out a lot, but I think that Carlos was kind of like housebroken when he was in Quiet Riot, as opposed to when he was in Snow.
He was more of a shredder in Snow. We know that.
Yeah, because in Snow, he was like, he let the cat out of the bag every damn song.
He was like Eddie Van Halen. I mean, he would do the guitar solos. He would come out. He even looked like Eddie Van Halen. He had that Explorer and
had that smile, that mouth.
Yeah.
I didn't look like Alex, though.
No, thank God.
You were a lot buffer.
Yeah, but no, Alex, he's a great drummer, man.
He's excellent.
Phenomenal. I mean, he's. I remember one time we played at the Pasadena Civic, and David Lee Roth and Alex came down, and it was I forget the opening bands, but Smile came on right before us. Of course, it's the battle of the drummers. You know how that is. I mean, me and Jimmy and whatever. So I thought, okay, Jimmy came on before me, so I got to do my thing. So I did my drum solo, and I said, well, guys, where was Alex at? And he goes, because we videotaped the whole thing with a 3-camera shoot from a guy from Pasadena City College. And he said he stayed by the monitor the whole night and watched the whole show on the monitor. I said, you know what? Right on. I'd probably do the same thing.
Yeah, year in and year out, Alex has been doing it, man. The guy's just, he's still got it.
He's got one of the best snare sounds, I think.
Oh, yeah, he's got a phenomenal... one of you guys touched on something that I've tried to keep, and whenever I lose this, I'm going to quit playing, and that is you got to have that real competitive edge when you go out there. You've got to think you are the best there is, and you got it in your mind. You can't say this to, but you have to feel like you guys are lucky to be seeing this because you're going to see something tonight, and you got to... Because there's so many guitar players out there, so many drummers out there, there's so many singers. If you don't go out there with that mindset that you're the best there is, and this is going to be something, I don't think that you even got a chance. At least I've had to do that, and not that I've made it or anything, but you've got to keep that edge and that focus of what you're out there for and why you did this to begin with. And I think a lot of people they kind of lose touch with why they're doing it, and they're just kind of going through the motions, and I think it's kind of sad when you see some of these guys. You can just tell they don't have that eye of the tiger anymore.
I did an album about 2 years ago with a band called Seventh Son, and the lead guitar player and lead singer was a really talented guy named J.T. Curtis, and he's at the time we recorded it, he was 23 years old, which was 2 years ago. He's 25 now, and so he and I were talking. He moved to New York, and he's doing really well out there right now. He's kind of like a blues jam band, Clapton, that kind of style. So he says to me, we're talking about music, and I said, back when I was in Snow, people would ask me, who are your influences? And I'd always say, Roberto Duran, Marvin Hagler, and they go, what? No, who are those guys? I'm talking about drummers. I go, no, these are the guys that influenced my drumming. And they go, what? What are you talking about? I go, no, watch the way I play. Watch me and feel me. And then they go, okay, but I wouldn't give them the cut and paste answers they wanted to hear of, John Bonham, Ginger Baker, Ian Pace, Mitch Mitchell, whatever, of the guys who were obvious. But I always tried to bring that thing of that competitiveness, like Greg said. You're right. Remember I put my freaking name in big red letters. I mean, it was like, it was a thing where we were trying to grab a portion of the market share, and if it meant being a little bit outrageous, bring it on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Stephen, every time you answered a question, you always try to get people to scratch their heads. I mean, I remember this about you now, and I forgot because now you've become like kind of straight ahead and articulate and right on TV. But you used to have some of the loopiest comments when people would interrogate you. I mean, you were wacko, man. I love that about you.
Yeah, but what it is that there's nothing better than baffling someone, especially if they're the enemy or the competition. One of my roadies, here's what I used to do. My roadie, I had this guy, Jerry Camuso was my roadie for a long time.
I loved him.
Remember
yes,
Jerry? Okay.
Big dude.
Well, Jerry, great guy. And so I brought him into Snow because he and I knew each other before Snow. So I brought him in. So he's down at the club, and he said, yeah, this drummer was asking me what you do and how you practice. And I said, what'd you tell him? He goes, well, I told him you wake up and you eat raw eggs and you do 2 miles around the block, and then you come back and skip rope and you go practice for 8 hours. I said, dude, never tell people that. You tell them that I wake up with Jack Daniels and a joint and lay around all day and stare at the ceiling. Never
practice.
Exactly.
That's Greg brought up a good point about that. And Greg, maybe that's why you're still out there doing it. If you don't honor the stage, go ahead.
I think I'm partially retarded to think that there's still a prize at the end of the racetrack here. It's so over for this kind of stuff. And
it's integrity, though, man. You got the integrity and people.
Yeah.
The prize is completing the song, knowing that you gave it the best shot, and then doing another and another and another. And anybody that brings anything less than 100% to the stage doesn't belong on the stage. Did you ever hear any of Buddy Rich's tirades when he'd yell at the musicians for throwing a couple of clams at the audience, blowing a couple of notes? If you don't respect the audience, you don't respect yourself, and bring 100% of your game, you're not going to go anywhere. I'm not talking about making it big. You make it big in the eyes of that person that's watching you by giving 100% and enjoying yourself up there.
Well, from a fan's perspective, I've never been a musician. I grew up in Orange County and hit the LA club scene in the early 80s. I was fortunate enough, like I said, to catch Snow and A La Carte in the Greg Leon invasion. And I caught all the bands that followed. I mean, I saw the very first shows of, Motley Crue, Poison, Rat, Steeler, all those bands, and then Warrant and Guns N' Roses. And it really turned me off. I mean, I guess maybe I was spoiled after seeing you guys play, the bands that started all Snow, Legs Diamond, A La Carte, Greg Leon Invasion, Shark Island, and of course Y&T, even though they're from San Francisco, I used to see them every time they came out to LA at the time. Yeah. And just amazing local bands. It was like seeing an arena band play. And then when these new breed of bands come over, like I said, these bands that came over from out of state, I remember seeing the first Poison shows and going, these guys don't fucking belong on a stage.
Brian, Bob brought up something, and I want to ask you as a drummer. What was your reaction the first time you ever saw Leonard Hayes play?
I was really annoyed. I liked the guy, but his drumming was like amazing and annoying because his foot was. That's all anybody would talk about was his foot.
That's true.
He could do double and triple bounces like nobody could believe. Playing a giant single bass kid, just he's a monster. I think he still does it, man. It's so annoying.
He's a producer now, and actually, I mean, first time I ever saw him, everybody said, "Oh yeah," and he had a ghost pedal, and I went out and bought a ghost pedal, right? So I got this ghost,
yeah.
I got this ghost pedal, and I'm setting it up and I'm trying to tune it up, and there was something that happened where I was down there tweaking it. I was down real low and under my drums, and the thing snapped and it dug a hole in my finger, and I had to almost have stitches. I got rid of that freaking thing.
Yeah, blame Leonard.
Spring in it.
Yeah, exactly. But the last gig I played with Snow was at Pookie's. And it was one of those things where, it was, when you leave a band, Greg, you've left bands, and I don't know about you, Brian, because you were with A La Carte for so long, but sometimes you leave and you're not on good terms at the moment. I mean, you make up later. But so what did I do? I went out there and I said, you know what? Fuck this, man. I'm going to do a drum solo tonight. A drum solo. And so I did this drum solo, and it was about 15 minutes long. and I thought, wait, I forgot a lick. Okay, let's go back. Oh, no, one more. Well, oh, yeah, and then there's this other lick. And it was like, they're off to the side looking at me like with murder in their eyes, but now we laugh about it.
But those are the things that make great memories, though, that kind of shit. And that's the best memories, man.
That's rock and roll.
Share some other memories you guys have playing back in the days. Some crazy stories. You want to start off, Greg?
Man, I'm just trying to think. I remember we were playing at the Star. I'll think of more of these as it goes on, but you were talking about Poison. And when C.C. DeVille first came into town from New York or wherever he's from, his real name is Bruce something. But he used to come and check out Sweet 19 at the Starwood. And he would beg me when we do 2 shows a night, he would beg me to be the rhythm guitar player in the band. And he had this voice like this. And he would just do this totally irritating voice. And all I could think of, and he was a nice guy, but that voice just drove me out of my mind. All I could think of was, I got to get away from this guy or I'm going to hit him. And I'm not a violent guy, but it was just so aggressive and so that New York pushing himself on me. That's the guy you need. You got to, man, if you had me, there's nothing, just go on and on and on. And then the next thing you know, I'm looking at that picture of them on the Look What the Cat Did. And I'm like, God, it looks like that guy, but is that a chick or are they dudes or what the hell is
That's what I thought too.
So I go to play the Rocklahoma thing a few years ago, and I'm walking around backstage, and I walk up to him, and I'm standing. I don't know if he thinks I'm trying to pick a fight with him, but I'm just standing right in front of him, and he's looking at me in the eye, and I'm looking at him, and I go, "You don't remember me, do you?" And he kind of shakes his head, "Nah." And I go, "Greg Leon." And he just about shit himself, and he hugged me and just would not let go. He kissed me, and he's going, "Dude, I used to go watch you at the Starwood. You were my hero, man. I loved your vibrato." And he goes on and all this stuff. And it was like we had this 5-minute thing of like this total bonding, and then after that, it was just over again because of that voice. Guy that really is a nice guy. Just too much aggressiveness for most people, I think.
Yeah.
What about you, Stephen? Any other great stories? I'm sure you got a ton of them.
We went through a period of time. The 3 of us, and Bob, you came in later, but the 3 of us went through a period of time. And I'm so glad, I'm very, very happy, Bob, that you brought the 3 of us together, because I love Greg Leon, I love Brian O'Brien. I mean, we're brothers in music, and this has been so cool for me. Trust me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm right with you, Stephen. Absolutely.
Brian,
Well,
I know you got a ton of killer stories.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Stephen for the nice comments, and yeah, I love you, Stephen, too. And Greg, you and I were never very close. The main reason was that my girlfriend was in love with you. You didn't know that, but it annoyed me.
I did know that, and that was a problem for me because that's not a good thing to put somebody through. So I just kept away from you, really.
Yeah, it's well put, and we were friends from afar. I don't know. I have there's a lot of great memories. I remember one afternoon I was conscious, and I was playing Knott's Berry Farm with A La Carte in the Good Time Theater. It was our second round there, and we were playing with Tanya Tucker. So I guess they were going to swap out the audiences, but the amusement parks were always wonderful gigs. And I pulled into the Good Time Theater. It was dark. They had this wonderful lighting system with a blue backdrop, and what it would do is silhouette anybody that was on the stage in perfect black against this deep blue backdrop. That was one of their lighting effects. Well, that was what was on when I pulled in, and I was the only person there. The park was full, but this air-conditioned facility was completely empty. And I pulled my Rambler up and started loading my drums in, and there was the drum riser, and it was silhouetted in black against the blue backdrop, and there was a roadie resting on the drum riser in perfect silhouette. I said, well, this is great. They're supplying the crew. So I said, I clear my throat, and the roadie sits up, and there's a fucking midget roadie. But it's a silhouette, right? And so the roadie kind of hops off the drum riser and starts kind of walking towards me in black silhouette. And all of a sudden he comes into the light at my feet and looks up at me, and it's a fucking chimpanzee.
Holy shit.
And I
Was he with
just
Michael Jackson?
about lost my fucking mind. I looked at, because I know these guys are dangerous. I mean, this guy, you rip your arm off. Just rip your arm off without thinking, 5 times stronger than a human being. And he's staring at me and not doing anything, just looking me right in the eye. And I'm looking at him like, what next? I'm wearing this beanie, this watch cap, right? And all of a sudden, he just lunges at me, climbs my body in about a split second, grabs the hat off my head, grabs his dick, and jacks off in it.
Is this a true story, or is this a dream you had?
Roadie, right? That was the roadie they had for you.
It was a fucking chimp, and he throws my watch cap down and lopes off into the theater. And that's the peak of the story. The end of it is that his trainer was there. He's an ice skating monkey, and the stage we were playing on is ice underneath there, and he ice skates, and he goes out into the audience and takes people's hats. But when he has his diaper on, he can't do that thing with his squirrely little dick. and I don't have a lot of money. I can't afford a new watch cap, so I tried to salvage the thing. And something about monkey sperm, it turns into concrete. You can't wash it out. So I was ruined. My hat was ruined, but I had this great experience that I can tell people that I was attacked by a monkey and he splooged into my hat.
One monkey don't stop no show. If you gonna leave me, go ahead and go, 'cause I could live without you and I want you to know. One monkey don't stop no show, yeah.
Ryan, I guess the No Brown M&M's writer didn't cover that.
No. That's probably my most unusual story, except for the Joan Jett Menage a Trois. That was a good one, but...
Whoa. Back up. Go ahead. Tell us about this one. Now, I know you were Sandy West's drum teacher for a while, right? When she was in the Runaways. And you guys did a lot of shows with the Runaways.
Yes, Sandy was my dad's patient, and I used to call her when she was 10 and 11 years old to remind her of her dental appointments. And then when I was in a band before A La Carte, I was kind of like a local, guy in Seal Beach, and she was a kind of a fan. And so I was an early teacher of hers, and then went on to be, a drum tech with her and continue some lessons. But it was more about the friendship and gigging together than it was instruction after that. But some of those Runaways gigs were gnarly, man, because we would travel with them, and Kevin, actually, my guitar player, actually did a little roadie work with them. Craig did. We liked it. It was like back then, bands would kind of roadie for each other. I don't know if you remember Robin Crosby, but he worked with Motley Crue when they were just starting out. He was like crew, security, guitar tech, whatever.
God bless him. R.I.P.
Yeah, he was a nice guy.
Yeah, some of these, the Runaways were crazy. Fun. A lot of fun, though. All good memories.
So the Menage a Trois.
Can I just look? Let's back away from that. She's still alive and she has attorneys and some power. So I'm just not going to go there. But thank you.
You brought it up.
No, I just kind of as a topic, not as something we want to complete the thought.
I'm going to help you out here, Brian. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to. This is not even close to the monkey goo story, but after I had carpal tunnel syndrome, I was coming back. I could play again. It had been 2 years. My arm. I started practicing. And Randy Castillo, my dear friend, who's now in heaven, was leaving Lita Ford. And so he said, "Stephen, go down and try out." So I said, okay. I practiced. I had short hair at the time, but I was at the gym working out and making sure I was strong, could hit hard and everything. And I didn't get the gig, but I remember Lita telling me one time, she said, "You know who you remind me of?" I said, "Who?" She goes, "The guy in Greystoke, the Tarzan movie. You're all arms." And I started laughing my ass off. I thought, man, well, I didn't get the gig though, right?
Still a compliment, though. I'll take that.
Yeah. So I bailed you out of that one.
Hey, Stephen, I remember going way back, listening to, you remember the station, there was a KNAC way back in the day, before they were a heavy metal station that everyone knows. They were like a rock and rhythm station, and then before that, in the late 70s, they were kind of a rock station. It was them and another station called K-West, but I believe it was KNAC had a show called Homegrown, and we're talking, this must have been like 79. I was a kid, and I used to listen to it. It was like the local music show, and I used to be with my little cassette recorder. I had one of those little portable recorders I would put up to the speaker and record all these shows. And, I must have been like, 13, 14 at the time, and I heard, this is the first time I heard Snow, before the EP came out. You guys did an interview, and then they played a different version of Crack the Whip that was different from the EP, and you had a song called It's a Crazy Life. You remember that? I had that on cassette. Now the cassette is ruined, but that was such a cool tune. I remember listening to that over and over again.
I love that song. As a matter of fact, I want to record that with Tony and Carlos. There's a number of songs. And, Greg and Brian, it's funny how the more things change, the more they stay the same, and everything's retro now. And a lot of the bands like Wolf Mother and God bless, Kings of Leon and some of these other bands, they're very retro sounding, and they sound like the kind of bands that were coming out back in the late 70s, early 80s. So I think that it's still very much a relevant time for bands to not rehash what they were doing back then, but to, put stuff out that never heard the light of day back then, because it'll sound brand new and fresh, and that would be one of them that I would pick. It's a Crazy Life because it had this certain pocket. It was like, not like Running with the Devil. It was a little bit faster, but it started off with that heavy bass beat, but I did more like a funk beat to it.
Totally.
And it's funny you remember that, Bob.
Yeah, I had that on tape. And do you still have that demo version?
Yeah, I've got a number of things. I've got a full concert of Snow at the Pasadena Civic, which we plan on releasing. It's a 3-camera shoot. Obviously, we're going to have a problem with the sound because of all the, Dolby and 5.1 technology they have now. But, we're going to try and combine it with a new CD of songs. CD, yeah, right. So people can go out and make demos of it themselves and put it on the internet for 5 cents or for free. But whatever. I think that right now, it comes down to bands must be able to cut the mustard live. If they can't, they're not going to be professional musicians.
Right.
Good point.
Anymore to cut the get their chops up and get their stage. When we were coming up, man, I was playing all through high school. I played every single weekend. We had parties in Glendale and Burbank and Pasadena and Arcadia, and my band played all through high school. And you learned how to get the crowd going. You learned what worked, what didn't work. These new kids, I mean, where are they going to learn how to do that before they get to the club scenes, if there's even a club scene? I just don't see, how do they do it? Go from their bedroom to the stage and try
They
to
watch YouTube.
Greg, you're absolutely right. There's nothing that, like Brian, you're a showman. I was a showman. Greg, you're a showman. We learned this the hard way by getting up there and failing enough times that you start thinking, oh, that ain't going to work. I'm going to try this. And the next thing you know, you got your little shtick. Jimi Hendrix was on the Chitlin Circuit forever before he became the big deal. So it's those kind of things where going out and paying your dues and playing for no money. Like, I mean, guys, even Greg, you say to this day you don't make a lot of money playing music because we love it. There was an interview that I remember. Now, you're going to crack up at this.
We just went up and we did 2 shows. We did a festival, a 2-day festival. We played both days up in Oregon a couple months ago. I got $1,500 a night. And by the time I paid my guys, and we paid for the gasoline, the trailer rental, because we took everything, because we were doing a video shoot up there, that $3,000, I didn't see one penny of that.
Yeah.
You got nothing.
It's ridiculous.
There was an interview that a band did called Molly Hatchet, which was a throwaway, Leonard Skinner knockoff band from the early 80s. And the drummer had this one line. He wasn't, a drummer like the drummers that but he was a good drummer for that band. But he had this one line in this interview, and it went like this: "We were too stupid to give up." and then they made it. But the thing is, they made it. I thought, wow, that's Shakespeare right there.
Stephen, that hurt to hear that one.
No, but that's what this guy said.
Ouch.
This is what this guy said. And, the funny thing is before I became a broadcaster and started making money, I was the editor of a magazine called the Kickboxing Ring Report from 1993 till 1999, and I made zero. My father was going, "What are you doing? I mean, you're wasting your life. What are you doing?" So sometimes, he had his own way of saying that, but that's just a joke of me bringing that up, because obviously we do it because we love playing music, bottom line.
Absolutely. Well, I can't imagine not doing it. What else is there? Are you going to work every day and just nothing to dream for? It's, you got to come up with songs. You got to put records on. I'm building a new studio right now. I've had a 16-track analog studio for, like the last 15 years. And I'm going backwards. I bought a 24-track 2-inch machine, and I'm gearing up to go 24-track 2-inch. I just put a 32-channel board in and buying more outboard gear, and it's all analog. You know what? Everything that comes out of the studio sounds better than anything you could do on Pro Tools.
Yep.
Hey, Steven, let's go over there and jam.
Let's do it. All you got to do is show up at my place. I got every damn 4 SVT stacks, 4 Marshall stacks. I got the best drum set ever, 28-inch bass drum, 14, 16, 18, a gong, to everything.
All right, I'll bring the beer.
Well, let's go ahead. And was there anything else you want to add before we'll end by talking to you guys what you guys are doing currently? Was there any other stories or anything before we get into that you guys want to throw in the mix?
Next chapter, maybe we should get together for a real interview, like 4 hours of just relentless
Dude, I could go on forever, man.
Yeah, we'll do the Menage a Trois, the Tracy Lords, the whole.
I want to hear all those stories. We're going to do a part 2 of this where you guys could really let loose.
Yeah, because the ratings are going to be huge on this, Bob, and people are going to want to hear more of our archaic bullshit.
Dude, I got it. I got to tell Brian, I got an email the other day. People are going back listening to the podcast, and this one guy, young metal fan into all like the newer stuff, he went back and heard the A La Carte podcast and said it was like his favorite episode. And he goes, that was so great hearing that story about Van Halen and the story about Motley Crue. And the thing about it is the young kids today, they have no idea. They have no idea what the scene was.
Give him my damn phone number. I want to talk to this guy. I need a fan.
I'll forward you the email there. But I know, Greg, you've been continuous since you were playing with, of course, with Dockett and Dubrow. You've had the Greg Leon invasion. And anyone that's not familiar with the Greg Leon invasion, that was and still is a kick-ass. Is it still a 3-piece band, right? You're doing the singing and guitars, correct?
Yeah, I do the singing and the writing and all the guitar playing, and even keyboards sometimes. And I do some producing now for other people, but the Invasion is alive and well. I got a new record called Tell the Children that I'm just trying to get the right deal for it where I don't get ripped off again, because it's so hard these days to actually get money out of something. I'm meeting with a guy, in fact, he just left here about 20 minutes before this interview, that I worked with back in the Starwood days, who has actually done quite well for himself, that we're trying to put a television show together right now. It'll be, like a cable show, but it'll be me interviewing other guitar players, talking about guitar playing, talking about effects pedals, their influences, everything. And then at the end of the show, we're going to jam. I have my band backing them up, and we're getting ready to, hopefully within the next month or two, shoot a couple of pilots. And we've got some interest, but, they want to see what it's all about first. So that's what we're working on right now. And then, like I said, I'm finishing up my new studio, and I got married about 9 years ago. So that keeps me busy, and I'm just happy, man. I'm just happy I'm still here. A lot of the guys, if they're not dead, they're real bitter, because that's all they could do was play music. They don't know how to make money other ways. And, I just feel totally blessed that, I own my own business for the last 20-something years, and I've got a good lifestyle, and, I still got my sense of humor, because, man, if you lose that, man, and you guys were killing me, I was just sitting back listening to you guys laughing my ass off at this stuff, and just thinking, this is how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun, man. When it gets serious, it's time to move on, man.
Amen.
Greg, you haven't changed ever. You're still as chipper, and you mentioned something about how some of these guys got bitter. When I couldn't play, and I thought it was going to be forever, I thought my drumming career was over forever, ever. It actually helped me in some ways, because it gave me a chance. I had to reinvent myself. I had to go into something else and see what I could do. And then, of course, it worked out okay. But now I can play again. And now every time I'm up at bat to play drums, it means the world to me. And I cherish that moment.
Good for you, man. You know what it means not to have that.
Yeah.
And Stephen, you're quite involved in the mixed martial arts still, correct?
Yeah, I'm probably one of the name players in the game that's not a guy in there getting his ass kicked. I've trained guys.
You're the modern day Gene LaBelle.
I'm more like a modern day Bruce Lee, because Bruce Lee didn't have any professional fights, and I never had a professional fight. So that Gene LaBelle, who's a friend of mine actually, I just saw him, Judo Gene LaBelle. Man, exactly. That guy, he's awesome. Of course, this is a Steven Seagal story, but that's in part 2. We'll get into that.
I've heard that story actually.
And not meaning to bait you guys or tease you, but I did a movie with Steven Seagal. And I have stories from that too, but that's a whole nother episode. We'll get to that now. This is the shameless plug portion of the interview, correct?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yes.
Stephen Quadros, STEPHENQUADROS. You can put that after myspace.com or facebook.com or twitter.com, or you can put STEPHENQUADROS.com. That's my website. That's how you get in contact with me, find out what I'm doing. Currently with Showtime, my next event that I'm commentating on will be 1 week from this Friday, November 19th on Showtime. It is Strikeforce Challengers. There's a sensational main event between a Brazilian fighter named Vitor Shaolin Ribeiro against Justin Wilcox from the United States. And I've got my own radio show now down in San Diego. I go down there every week to do Clinch Gear Radio, and we have some of the greatest and brightest names in mixed martial arts. We do that every Saturday at 11 a.m. on 1360 a.m. But if you go onto my Facebook, you can find out how you can listen online if you don't happen to be in the San Diego area. And I teach, 3 kickboxing classes a week. I've been playing gigs with Marcus Singletary. I want to put together my own band, but honestly, what I'd really like to see happen, Carlos, Tony, and I have been talking about this. I want to do the snow reunion. We're going to do it right. We're not going to rush into anything. And I'm very excited about that because, as like Greg said, the funny thing is that not being able to play for that period of time and thinking I was never going to play ever again, now it makes me regenerate that excitement and that competitiveness that I had back in the days when we were all sharing the Starwood and the whiskey stages together. And I'm more excited than ever. And it's been great being on with my friend and colleague Greg and Brian and Bob. Great, so nice to talk to you. Who's next?
Well, I just want to say I hope to God you guys do that snow reunion, even with a new singer. I mean, I can't wait for that. Really
we've got a snow MySpace. It's myspace.com/pure-uncut-rock.
And let's backtrack again to Greg. Do you have a contact or anything where people could contact you, or do you want people to contact you, or anything you want to throw out there?
Of course. You can reach me at MySpace, Greg Leon Invasion on MySpace, and or you can email me at gregleoninvasion@hotmail.com, gregleoninvasion@hotmail.com. Yeah, that's if you want to get in touch. I'm not going to give you my phone number, but I will get back to you if you email me.
Right on. You did that, you briefly talked about that show in Rocklahoma. What that was like last year or 2 years ago?
No, I did the first one in 2007. And man, they had me, after they saw me play, the promoters came up to me and they go, dude, that was amazing. Can you come out later tonight and do the Star Spangled Banner? Wow. I said, I thought you guys wanted me to do it tomorrow. They go, no, do it tonight. And so I came out and I did the Star Spangled Banner for about 45,000 people, and they had a Black Hawk helicopter off-site that while I was doing it, it came and hovered over the crowd about 200 feet above the crowd. Then it lifted off and took off when I was done. And that was a dream come true for me, and it was so surreal that all I remember was them walking me to the stage and say, go. And when I came off stage, my wife was crying, my band was crying, because I flubbed it so bad. No, I'm kidding. It was so, I guess it moved these people so much. And I've seen pictures of it where every single hand is up in the air with either giving a peace sign or the heavy metal horn sign. It was just the most amazing thing. And I knew when I did it that I moved these people because the applause didn't stop. And when I was done, I took my guitar and I laid it up against the stacks, and it was just feeding back with my univibe going. It's going gang, 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 gang. And this went on for minutes. And I'm back behind the amps, and all these people are like patting me on the back, and I'm going, Jesus, don't anybody know how to turn an amp off? So I walked back out on the stage, and the crowd went absolutely crazy. And there's pictures of me with my guitar up in the air, just like holding it, and as I turned the amps off. And to me, as a little kid, I saw the Jimi Hendrix movie where at Woodstock, he plays the Star Spangled Banner. And I go, man, one day that's going to be me. And I was out there, and all I could think of, well, you know what, Greg? You did it. And I didn't get rich playing music, but I did the one thing when I started out that I wanted to do was just play the Star Spangled Banner for my country, for 40,000 rock fans that were all there for one reason, because they love this kind of music that me, Stephen, and Brian started back, in the late 70s, and came out there, and I did it. I started it out kind of Jimi Hendrix style and put my own thing in there, and in the middle of it, I went into Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which was something I used to do with the Starwood in my solo, but I did it with jazz chords and the voicings that moved, and I figured it out in my hotel room the night before because I had a feeling I was going to be asked to do this, but I wanted to make it my own thing, and so I did that, and when I came off the stage and all those people were crying, I'm like, what? And nobody could even speak. It was just the weirdest thing. I'd never had that kind of impact that I know of on other people before with my playing, and it was just like, okay, if I never go on stage again, I can die a happy guy, because that was what I started out to do when I did it, and I did it the way I wanted to do it. So that really stands out in my mind as one of my greatest moments for me on stage.
Well, dude, I'm so glad you're back together with the Greg Leon Invasion. I mean, like I said, last time I saw you, it must have been early 80s when, back when Geronimo was playing bass. And I remember seeing you at Radio City as the Greg Leon Invasion. And I mean, you just literally kicked my ass. 3-piece band, because of course the stuff you did in, Dawkins and Dubrow was more, pop metal stuff. But for people that don't know, Greg Leon and Vage, you kind of remind me of like, you say that Hendrix vibe, or, remind me of Frank Marino. 3-piece, just in your face, guitar, vocals, bam.
You just hit the nail on the head. That was my favorite guys: Frank Marino, Jimi Hendrix, Robin Trower, the real guitar players.
Absolutely.
And that's what I did. And Rory Gallagher, that's who my guys were. And I went out there and just pretended I was them every night. That was what I, as a kid, I went out and pretended that. It got me a lot of attention when I started playing the clubs. I just, with my own songs, and to this day, you can hear what my influences are in my songs. Because, that's the stuff that I love, and I'm unabashedly ashamed of where I come from with my music. I'm not trying to be some, that I wrote all this stuff or made all this stuff. I mean, that I write this stuff, but it's all derivative of something else. I don't care what anybody says, man. Everybody steals from everybody else, and everybody, you get a little thing of inspiration, and, you just got to keep that dream alive and just remember why you started playing the guitar, the drums, or the bass, or started singing in the first place. And if you lose that thing, that feeling that you had that made you feel so good when you were doing it, I think that it's over. I really do, in my heart of hearts, think that once you lose that, time to get off the stage.
Wow, well, so great to have it. I mean, Greg Leon of Age has been going on since the early 80s, right? I remember Joey Vera from Armored Saint was in the band before he joined Armored Saint.
I just saw Joey. We just ran into each other. He actually came up to my shop, and we spent a day together a few months ago.
Right.
And just we're remembering the old days and just laughing our asses off at the crazy shit that we pulled off and the crazy situation. And then when he left the band, how I found out about it, which is a hilarious story. If we got time, I'll go into it now.
Absolutely.
Well, I had this drummer, Carl Elizondo, who went by the name Carl James at the time, Carlos, and I called him up one night and said, hey, Joey just called me. He's got some kind of stomach flu or something. We're not going to rehearse tonight. You want to get together? He goes, that's bullshit. He's playing with some other. I go, what? Because I had us on salary. I had this manager that had us all on salary. We had a rehearsal room that was all paid for. And, we getting ready to go into the studio, and we had a producer, and all this stuff was starting to line up for us. And the following was built. It was right when I got back from Europe with Dawkins and started my own thing. And so he's playing with these guys over in South Pasadena, his friends that he went to high school with. And it's John Bush, it's Gonzo, it's the guys in Armored Saint. I don't think they even had a name yet, but they were rehearsing on the side. And so I'm like, no. If you're in my band, you play with me, and that's it. Because I can't share somebody, because I got to get out there and do it and not be calling to see if we can take dates and all the stuff that when you're a band, you want it all to be about the band, because that's what you're living for. So I said, Carlos, do you know where they're rehearsing? He goes, I think I do. So anyways, I said, I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. So run over to his house. We jump in my car, and he's telling me how to get to this rehearsal room. We get there, and we hear this band, and they're playing, and we're banging on the door. Nobody opens up. Banging on the door. Finally, the music stops, and I'm banging on the door. The door swings open, and all of this pot smoke just comes barreling out of the room, and you can just barely make out silhouettes in there from the smoke. And I hear them go, oh, God, it's Greg Leon. Joey, it's Greg. Greg's here, And they're all freaking out. So he comes outside, and I just made it real blunt. I said, dude, got to tell me right now, either you're playing with these guys or you're playing with me, because I got to move on. I can't wait around for anybody. And he chose to play with them. But I just remember, and he talked about that in some interview, and I had forgotten about it.
He talked about that in an interview we did, actually.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I laughed my ass off when he was telling me that. And I read it in the interview. Somebody emailed it to me, and I got in touch with him. And we were just dying laughing, the crazy stuff that you do when you're kids, man.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And Brian, last but not least, man, give us an update.
Well, I want to say it's been really great hanging out with you tonight, Bob, and Stephen. It's been a long time. It's been fun talking to you. And Greg, what a hoot. What an enjoyable evening.
Right back at you, man.
Listen to this. Vicious dog. You want to make my comments for me, Priscilla?
Oh, God,
Right. Yeah, sure. I'll promote myself just a little bit. I got, like I mentioned earlier, I've got the new band, First Rodeo. Hopefully it's a band that won't be as prone to theft of music as a lot of bands, because our audience may be a little more, middle America. It's kind of a mainstreamy thing, pop with, but I do try to make some of the drumming over the top so that, people won't forget that I used to be able to play. I've still got Craig Miller on bass, whom I've been with for, I think, 38 years. So the rhythm section is pretty solid. We're really enjoying it. We just did our first gig out in Kingman, Arizona at the Winter National Sand Drags, and what a wonderful town, what a wonderful experience being back on stage. We with some new music and a new approach. If anybody is interested in some of the old A La Carte songs or some of the pictures, we can be reached at myspace.com/A La Carte Rocks, or you can just Google, you can go to YouTube and type in A La Carte Brian or A La Carte Kevin, and it'll pop up with about 10 different videos, some of them from our reunions, and I think there's only about 3 or 4 cuts that exist from 79 and 80, and those are pretty twisted.
Ooh, I got to check that out.
Yeah, we don't have a whole lot of archive video stuff, but there's a whole lot of recorded material. And if anybody's interested in it and it's not available out there on the web, they can contact me at brianobrien50@hotmail.com. You can email me, and I'll be happy to share the A La Carte music with anybody who gives a damn and wants to find out about it.
All right, and that's Brian, Brian, and then O, and then Brien, correct?
A-N. It's duplicated. Brian.
Oh, it is.
O'Brien.
Okay, it is. Gotcha.
Brian, I got a question for you, Brian. I heard that you guys did Starwood reunion gig or something like that, because we were asked about that, but I don't know if it ever happened. Did you guys do that?
Well, that was just part of the hype. The first thing I did, like when I emailed Kevin DeBro 10 years ago, I put a word out there, Starwood reunion or Starwood to reopen, and then he got right back to me. So anytime I was gonna, hustle a gig, I just mentioned the Starwood, people would flock. What I did try to do at our last gig at Mirror Image is try to get Starwood humans to show up, and I would make a fuss. And I got Stephen Quadros to come, and I made a fuss, and I would love to put something like that together. But, our target audience for a Starwood reunion is going to be 45 to 55 years old, which means we're going to have to really bust our asses, 1, to find them, and 2, to get them, out of retirement to actually remember what it's like to go to a gig. But it's doable. It could happen. We had 200 people at Mirror Image. It's a nice crowd for a band who hadn't played for 20 years, so it was okay. I think we could probably pull in 400 or 500, maybe 1,000 people if we had the right bands. Greg, you for one.
Love to.
Steven,
I would love to see Snow again, man. I would love to see them play.
But Doug is out? Is that the picture? That he just won't sing again? I know he's not ambulatory, but he won't whip out the pipes?
No, it's just a thing where he's disabled.
Well, so's the guy from Great White. I mean, I don't think he can. Isn't he come out on in a wheelchair? Does Jack Russell walk?
I just heard that he's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I heard Janie Lane from Warrant was filling in for him, which I thought was odd.
Oh, that's
in some shows.
I think that's odd. I think that's that you understated that.
Yeah, I did understate it very much.
Yeah, I think we need to get a petition and hammer it over to Doug and say, we don't care how you get on stage, start singing now.
The thing is, me, Carlos, and Tony are good with moving on, though. So it's you.
All right. But I'm not good with it. I apologize. But whatever you get is going to be great, Stephen. It's cool. It's cool. I still like to hammer the guy, though.
Like Trinity Lopez.
Because I'm a pushy fucker. I'm sorry.
Are you?
Doug was a great singer.
Not to you, because you'd like to kick my ass.
The ass is the most padded part of the body. Why would I want to kick your ass?
One quick kick. Come on, do it for me. And all the listeners, let's all go to First Cabin and check out Jimmy Volpe.
Dude, I would love to.
It's worth it.
He played on that first Warrior album, too, Fighting for the Earth, right?
Yeah, all you got to do is put that on YouTube, Warrior and Volpe, and you can see Jimmy with his hair poofed. It's just hysterical.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, anything else before we end this thing?
Greg Leon.
I got to go kill a dog.
On YouTube.
What was that again, Greg?
I don't know where some of this stuff come from, but somebody's put up some stuff. I put up some of it, but on YouTube, there's some Greg Leon Invasion videos on there. One of them is a demo, a promotional demo, 8-minute demo we did over in Europe. That's just a bunch of my music that's edited down to 8 minutes, like 12 songs. And then there's some other live songs. And we're going to put up probably about 20 or 30 different songs. Eventually, we're going to put them up on YouTube just so people can check us out before they come see us if they haven't seen us before when we go to other states and stuff.
All right. Well, look for them. Greg Leon, of course, Stephen Quadros, Brian O'Brien. Check them out online on Facebook, MySpace, YouTube. Support them. Buy their music if you can. Buy their merchandise and see their shows when they're in town. Thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure, and we got to all definitely get together soon. We'll get together in Arcadia for the Volpe show.
That'd be great.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Stephen.
We're glad to be alive today to come to spotlight. not too late for unfinished business. Unfinished business.
Well, there you go, man. That was one hell of a discussion. One of my favorite discussions I've had thus far on the Shockwave Skull Sessions. Many thanks to the great Greg Leon. In fact, we just ended off with something from Greg Leon's latest album, Unfinished Business. That, of course, was the title track. And we also intertwined a lot of music from A La Carte and Snow, the Snow EP from 1980. And A La Carte, a live soundboard recording from the Golden Bear in Huntington Beach back in 1981. And I believe I was at that very show. The first local show I ever saw. I believe it was that one, or maybe another one of their Golden Bear shows. But anyway, one hell of a great conversation, and many thanks to Greg Leon, Brian O'Brien, and of course Stephen Quadros. We're definitely going to have them on again, man. Too many great stories, and I know we didn't even scratch the surface with some of the stories that these guys have. So we'll definitely have them on again. And man, I believe this is our longest episode so far. So without boring you too much, we're going to go ahead and close off. Once again, this is the Shockwave Skull Sessions. Drop me a line. Let me know what you think of this podcast. Hit me up at shockwaveskullsessions@gmail.com. And of course, hit up the bands. They gave their websites out. Definitely support them. Buy their music. Go see their shows. They're all back in action again, so definitely check them out and do support them. And with that said, I believe the best way to end off is in pure a la carte fashion. I love their live show because they do this killer grand finale at the end. So I feel that's an appropriate way to end this podcast. So thanks again for all your support over the years. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for checking out the Shockwave Skull Sessions podcast. You can download all episodes of the Skull Sessions podcast free of charge on our homepage at roadrunnerrecords.com/Skull Sessions. You can also subscribe to the Shockwave Skull Sessions podcast through iTunes. Please email questions, comments, suggestions, and gripes to Bob Nalbandian at shockwaveskullsessions@gmail.com. We appreciate the support.